Chapter 1021. If you have something to say, then say it. If Sui paused and swallowed the words. If you have something to fart back into his stomach. This. Sir Chairman, can you ask the Academy of Magic to give us more rights to the household magic machine technology? Enkato asked. What? Do you feel threatened? Sui looked at him with a smile. Enkato coughed lightly and looked a little embarrassed. After a pause, he sighed and nodded honestly, yes. Sir Chairman, our new flyer has been around for so many years and has never fallen behind the other companies in terms of technology. But you see, our household magic machine department has just become independent and 3 companies have surpassed us in terms of technology. I can't accept this. So you want to get back at us in terms of technology? Yes. Since he had already said this, Enkato didn't hesitate anymore. He gave a strong nod and said, Sir Chairman, those third-grade companies have only made some small innovations, but now they're bragging that they can crush our Frestac Chamber of Commerce in terms of technology. I'm very dissatisfied. And from a practical point of view, this has also affected our household magic machine sales to a certain extent. Oh, tell me about it. Enkato clearly came prepared as he took out a document and placed it in front of Sui. Sir Chairman, look, this is our household magic machine department's current order situation. If compared to last year, it has increased by 17%, which would be said to be an increase. But if you look carefully, you will find that the increase this time is clearly lower than the previous few years. This is the data from last year and the year before. It can be found that compared to the year before, last year's order increase was as high as 31%, but this year's increase is only 17%. No matter how you look at it, there's a problem. So you think that it is because those 3 companies have announced new technology that it has affected our household magic machine sales? Yes, I can't say that it is entirely because of this, but I feel that this is the most important reason, Enkato said with certainty. And what worries me the most is that this will affect our company's image of being number 1 in technology. Sir President, you've always emphasized that technology is the most important factor. Now that other companies have surpassed us in terms of technology, how can that be justified? So you plan to crush them in terms of technology right now and reestablish our leading position in technology? Sui asked. Isn't that natural? Enkato looked at Sui strangely, as if he didn't understand why Sui would even ask such a question. Mr. President, the reason why New Flyer is able to develop so quickly is because we have always been the lead in terms of technology. If we lose this advantage, do you think our Chamber of Commerce will sink? Sui interrupted him. Enkato opened his mouth and shook his head vigorously. No, I don't think so. I just feel that. Since we have always been in the lead in terms of technology, then we should continue to maintain it. So, let the Academy of Magic give us more access to technology. What do you think? Sui didn't answer. Instead, he picked up the report and looked at it for a while before continuing. I've also paid attention to the new technology that those 3 companies have developed. To be honest, they can't be considered as technological innovations in the true sense. And these technologies have actually been developed by the Academy of Magic a long time ago. They just haven't used them yet. That's why. Enkato looked at Sui with a face full of hidden bitterness. Sir President, why do you insist on not letting us use those new technologies? If you were willing to give us more access, those guys wouldn't have any chance of catching up and wouldn't be able to be so arrogant in front of me. Arrogant in front of you. Sui looked at him with some amusement. He thought that Enkato had just gone to the Lampari Kingdom last week to participate in the Household Magic Machine Technology Exchange Conference that was held twice a year. It was likely that he had been bullied by others at the conference, which was why he was so resentful. What if I told you that I'm purposely not putting these technologies into use, because technology needs to be upgraded in stages, and it's best not to make too many improvements at once? The most important reason is to let the other companies catch up and surpass us. What would you think? Sui asked with a smile. Enkato opened his eyes wide and looked at Sui with a face full of disbelief. Sir President, Didn't you always say that we have to maintain the lead in technology to ensure the status and authority of our Chamber of Commerce? Why? Why are you doing this on purpose? He was silent. The reason why he was doing this was actually for the healthy development of the entire industry. If New Flyer continued to maintain the absolute lead in technology, it would be like a huge chasm compared to the other chambers of commerce. Then it would be a huge blow to the enthusiasm of the other chambers of commerce to invest in technology research, which would not be beneficial for the continued development of the industry. Sui knew that just relying on the New Flyer Chamber of Commerce alone would not be able to support the development of the magic machine industry on the continent. Therefore, he had always been doing things in hopes that everyone on the continent would invest in this industry and promote the development of this industry together. But these words could not be said to Encanto. After all, he was the president of the Xinfei Household Magic Machine Chamber of Commerce. From his point of view, he did not need to consider these problems. After thinking for a moment, He turned his head to Cindy and said, "Record this and let the Academy of Magic do a technical evaluation. Then let them negotiate with the Household Magic Machine Chamber of Commerce to give them some technical rights." Hearing this, Encanto's heart was filled with joy. "Sir Chairman, I have another idea that I hope you can listen to." "Speak." "Look, since our Household Magic Machine Department is already independent, wouldn't it be inappropriate for us to seek technical support from the Academy of Magic and the Magic Machine Development Center?" "You mean that you want to establish your own technology research department?" He narrowed his eyes as he asked this back. Encanto was stunned before saying with a laugh, "Sir Chairman, you really are sharp. Yes, I want to establish my own technology research department that specializes in researching household magic machines. The Academy of Magic has too many things to research, so it isn't good to keep bothering them, don't you think?" "Kid, if you don't want to be restricted by the Academy of Magic, just say it. Beating around the bush like this, do you think I'll believe you?" He gave a cold snort. "Sir Chairman, I'm just thinking about the future development of the Household Magic Machine Department." He waved his hand. "Just do it if you have an idea. You're already independent, so you don't need to ask for my opinion on everything." "Cool. I'm not just asking for your opinion. I'm mainly hoping to obtain your support." Encanto carefully looked at Sue. "If possible, can you send a few people from the Academy of Magic to help us?" He was instantly happy. "Kid, you just had an idea, and you want to poach people from the Academy of Magic? Do you know how much effort we spent to pull in the researchers from the Academy of Magic? Now you want to leave as soon as you open your mouth?" Encanto laughed, but his expression didn't show any signs of backing down. "Sir Chairman, we're all members of the company, so there's no need to talk about poaching people, right? If our Household Magic Machine Department develops, well, we can share a lot of the pressure from the Academy of Magic." "You make it sound good." He shook his head, leaned back in his chair, and thought for a while before nodding. "All right, I have to agree that it's good that you have this idea. Since you're willing to take on more responsibility, then I'll help you. I agree to you setting up a research department, and we'll also have the Academy of Magic provide you with some assistance. But how much assistance will be given will depend on how much you're able to convince Principal Evita." "Really? That's great." Encanto excitedly jumped up from his chair and patted his chest. "Sir Chairman, don't worry. I'll definitely do my best to run this department. Not only will we not need to rely on the Academy of Magic in the future, we can even use it to help the Academy of Magic's research." "All right." He nodded with a smile, thinking that this Encanto was quite smart, understanding what he cared about the most. After watching Encanto walk out of the office, Cindy suddenly let out a sigh filled with emotion. "I feel more and more that it's natural for us elves to lose to the humans in the race war." "Oh? Why do you suddenly say that?" Sui asked curiously. "Because among our elves, there has never been someone as energetic and creative as him, and he has never been so bold as to make such a request to his superior. It could even be said that. It could be said that he's a bit shameless." "Shameless?" Sui glanced at where Encanto was sitting and couldn't help but laugh. If Encanto knew that what he did just now was called shameless in Cindy's eyes, who knew what he would think? "We elves are too conservative, and we like to do things by the book. Very few of our elves have their own ideas. However, humans are completely different. Almost every human has their own ideas and creativity, which allows humans to develop very quickly. Even if we could win the war 3,000 years ago, we would definitely lose in the future. Cindy continued to express her emotions. I didn't feel this way back when I was in the elves, but after working for you, Sir Chairman, I feel more and more strongly. Is that so? Sui said with a faint smile. This problem doesn't only apply to you elves, it applies to us humans as well. If one day we humans also lose the spirit of innovation, then what awaits us is only elimination. Cindy nodded. Sui looked at the closed office door and recalled everything that happened today. A bitter smile suddenly appeared on his face. But Cindy, sometimes too much energy and creativity may not bring good things. Chapter 10:22. A mournful scream suddenly pierced through several layers of wooden boards, reaching deep into the gloomy basement and entering Bulwark's ears. His body couldn't help but stiffen, and his originally drowsy mind became tense once more. He first turned his head to look at his side and discovered that his daughter, Heike, was still sleeping soundly. She didn't seem to have been woken up by this scream, and he immediately let out a sigh of relief. However, when he saw the trace of dark red blood on Heike's originally straight face that hadn't completely receded, his expression couldn't help but become even more gloomy. The riot had already lasted for 5 days. 4 days ago, when Burke sensed that something was wrong, he rushed to hide Heike, who was only 2 years old this year, in this hidden basement. In the past 4 days, he hadn't taken a single step out of this basement. He knew very well that the current capital of the Drow Kingdom, Drow City, had already fallen into chaos. Those damn Drow clansmen were searching everywhere for outsiders like them. As long as they were caught, he and Heike definitely wouldn't be able to escape their tragic fates. But what was the point of continuing to hide here? The supplies stored in this basement wouldn't last for long, and more importantly, there weren't any medicines here. Heike already showed signs of catching a cold yesterday, and now she was even showing signs of a fever. Even though she was in a drowsy state, and he didn't have to worry about her being discovered by the Drow clansmen outside, she was still only a 2-year-old child. If she didn't receive any treatment, she wouldn't be able to hold on any longer. Bulwark reached out his hand to touch Heike's forehead. Feeling the scalding heat in his hand, he inwardly made up his mind. No matter what, he had to find a way to make a trip out today. Apart from trying to obtain some medicine to treat Heike, he also had to scout out the situation outside and try to find a way out of this hellish place. Bulwark knew very well that even the capital, Drow City, had already fallen into this kind of chaos. Even if he left Drow City, the situation wouldn't be much better. For an outsider like him, the entire Drow Kingdom would probably be a hellish place. He was nothing more than an ordinary person, carrying a 2-year-old child, and trying to escape from the rather large Drow Kingdom was practically an impossible task. However, he had no choice. Instead of waiting for death here, he had to take a gamble. Burke picked up the only remaining bottle of clear water and carefully fed Huey a few mouthfuls from a small cup. Then, after thinking for a moment, he picked up the little remaining food and started chewing with the remaining clear water. The stench of rotting corpses that seeped out from the wooden planks mixed with the murky air in the basement, making the whole basement smell nauseating. The thing in his hand had long become hard, and it no longer had the aroma that food should have. However, he continued to eat in big mouthfuls, doing his best to swallow the food into his stomach. He knew that he had to have enough stamina to support his next move. While eating and accumulating his stamina, Burke stared at the light that shone through the cracks in the wooden planks of the basement entrance. When the light gradually dimmed and finally disappeared, Burke took a deep breath and fed Heike a few more mouthfuls of water. After confirming that Heike was still in a semi-conscious state and wasn't in too much danger for the time being, he calmed himself down and moved closer to the exit. After listening for a while and confirming that there was no movement outside, Burke quietly pushed open the door to the basement. Moonlight shone through the window into the room. Burke narrowed his eyes and sized up his surroundings. The first thing he saw was a shining white body. This corpse, which had long since lost all signs of life and was completely naked, was Bulk's wife. For days ago, the thugs of the Darrow clan had broken into Bulk's home. Although Bulk had seen that the situation was bad, he had taken Heike and hid in the basement ahead of time. However, his wife and his eldest son, Roman, who had returned home later, had fallen into the hands of the thugs. Burke's wife had been gang-raped by the thugs and then tortured to death. Roman had also been brutally murdered by the thugs. Looking at Roman's mutilated corpse lying not too far away from his wife's corpse, Burke's heart couldn't help but tremble. If it was possible, when he heard his wife and Roman's screams in the basement 4 days ago, he would have charged out and fought those thugs to the death. However, for Huey, he endured it in the end. He didn't even know how he had survived these past few days. If it wasn't for Huey, he probably would have collapsed long ago. But now, even Huey had fallen into a dangerous situation, forcing him, a man who had always been reprimanded by his wife as a coward, to take this risk. After taking a deep look at his wife and Roman's corpses, Burke didn't touch them. Instead, he carefully scraped out a layer of ash from the extinguished fireplace and spread it over his hair. He was someone from the Lampari kingdom, so he was born with a head of wine-red hair. On the other hand, the Durlow clan's characteristic was that they were born with gray hair. If he went out like this, he would be easily recognized. After carefully putting on this disguise, Burke lowered his head and looked at himself. After sniffing and confirming that there wasn't too much of an eye-catching smell, he took a look at the situation outside and quietly left through the back door. It was already late at night, and there weren't many people walking on this remote street. However, one could still see flames in the distance, and from time to time, miserable screams and unbridled laughter could be heard. It was very clear that the Durlow clan's thugs were still committing crimes and making merry everywhere. Burke didn't know how many foreigners like him there were in Durlow City, but he was sure that there weren't many who could survive this riot. The medicine shop was at the other end of the street, and Burke had to cross the entire street to reach it. Fortunately, this street was very remote, and there weren't many people on the street at the moment, allowing Burke to reach the medicine shop without any mishaps. This medicine shop was opened by someone from the Lampari kingdom. Because they used the special medicinal ingredients provided by the Moonshadow tribe, the medicinal effects were quite good, and so their business was usually very good. However, this medicine shop had clearly been ransacked by the thugs. Not only did the door fly off to who knows where, but the inside was also a complete mess. Burke used the moonlight to search through his memories for a long time before finally finding some leftover medicinal ingredients in a medicine box in the corner. At this moment, he was very glad that he had learned some basic medical knowledge from chatting with the owner of this medicine shop. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to do anything even if the medicinal ingredients were placed in front of him. After obtaining the medicinal ingredients, Burke didn't immediately return home. Instead, he left the street and tried to explore the outside. He had another mission, which was to investigate the situation in the city and make preparations to escape from Durlow City. Burke's house was located in the western district of Durlow City, and there were about 3 streets between it and the western gate of Durlow City. It wasn't very far, but it wasn't very close either. The most important thing was that he had to pass through the main street that led to the western gate. That street wasn't as remote as the one he was on right now. Sure enough, when Burke passed through 2 streets and walked onto the main street, he encountered a group of Durlow tribesmen swarming towards him. Burke's heart tightened, but he tried his best to maintain a calm appearance on the surface as he calmly walked up to them. "Hey, brother, it's so late. Did you just come back from somewhere?" When the group of people saw Burke, the leader of the group, a young man, loudly greeted him. From the way they were staggering and the smell of alcohol wafting from their mouths, it could be seen that they had just finished drinking. Burke was just about to reply with a forced smile, but he suddenly saw the things in the hands of the 2 Durlow tribesmen. His eyes immediately widened, and he couldn't say anything else. The things in the hands of the 2 Durlow tribesmen were round. Upon closer inspection, it was actually 2 human heads. Using the moonlight and the light from the fire on the street, Burke could clearly see the numbness on the faces of the two people. He felt his stomach churn, and he almost vomited out the thing he had forced himself to swallow. Seeing Burke's unsightly expression, the Durlo tribesman who had greeted him just now grabbed Burke's shoulder and loudly said, "Hey, brother, could it be that you're still unhappy about something? Don't worry, if you're unhappy, we'll find another outsider to make you happy. Brothers, what do you say?" "Yes." The other Durlo tribesman behind him immediately cheered loudly. Burke forcefully resisted the urge to punch this guy in the face and said with a smile, "There's nothing to be unhappy about. It's just that." Before he could finish speaking, two Durlo tribesmen surrounded him. One of them raised a huge bottle of wine in his hand and placed it next to Burke's mouth. As he did so, he mumbled, "No matter what you're unhappy about, just drink some wine and you'll be fine. This is the fine wine of the dwarves. It's amazing." How could Burke dare to drink it this time? He tried his best to dodge. However, how could a drunk person allow others to refuse to drink? He blocked the other two Durlo tribesmen and directly grabbed Burke. That Durlo tribesman lifted the wine barrel and forced it down Burke's throat. Burke forcefully turned his head, but he just happened to bump into that Durlo tribesman's arm, causing the wine bottle in his hand to fly and the wine to splatter in all directions. That Durlo tribesman didn't get angry. Instead, he laughed loudly. "Good, brother, so you like to drink so boldly. I like it. Come, I'll—" His voice suddenly stopped, and he pointed at Burke with a look of astonishment. Burke was startled. He suddenly felt a chill on his head. He was startled and shouted, "Shit, he has red hair. He's not our tribesman. He's an outsider from the west." The Durlo tribesman who was about to feed Burke suddenly shouted. At this time, Burke couldn't care less. He exerted strength in his arms and broke free from the two Durlo tribesmen who were protecting him. Then he kicked the Durlo tribesman in the stomach and turned around to run. The Durlo tribesmen were stunned for a moment before they reacted. They immediately shouted and chased after him. Burke knew that he definitely wouldn't be able to avoid them on the main road, so he turned around and rushed to a nearby street. However, just as he turned the corner, he saw a group of Durlo tribesmen walking in his direction. Burke's heart immediately turned cold. After all, this was the capital of the Durlo kingdom. Durlo tribesmen were everywhere in this city, and as an outsider, he could only fight on his own. However, how could he fight against an enemy that outnumbered him by countless times? Seeing the Durlo tribesmen surrounding him, Burke felt as if he was in an abyss. Deep despair welled up in his heart. Could it be that in the end, he couldn't bring Huika out of this hell on earth? At this time, a strange whistling sound came from the sky. Then, a flame smashed into the group of Durlo tribesmen. Boom! A violent explosion sounded, and the Durlo tribesmen were all sent flying. Chapter 10:23. The Signs continent was a half-slave and half-feudal world. In short, it was much more backward compared to Earth civilization. At the same time, Signs was not only a place where many races coexisted, but also many intelligent races. Other than humans, there were elves, dwarves, beastmen, halflings, and other legendary intelligent races. These races all had different forms of civilization. They could even be said to be completely different species, so it was very easy for them to clash with each other. And because of the difference in species, in a long history of the Signs continent, there were many terrifying things that people couldn't bear to look at. For example, 2,000 years ago, when the beastmen and humans were fighting for supremacy on the continent, it was not rare for them to exterminate each other. Putting aside the conflicts between different races, even the conflicts between humans were not uncommon. Tragic incidents similar to massacres had occurred many times. It could even be said that the history of humans dominating Signs was a bloody history. So if it was like this, the Drow Kingdom's rebellion against other races, especially against people from the southwest corner of the continent, wasn't that shocking. Compared to the cruel things that happened on the continent, this wasn't even worth mentioning. However, the things that happened in history had already faded with time. Moreover, the Signs continent had been in a rare period of peace for the past few decades, so this kind of thing rarely happened. So there were even fewer people who had personally seen this kind of cruel situation. So when the various newspapers of the various countries reported on the rebellion in the Drow Kingdom, the other people on the continent were shocked by the cruel and terrifying scenes described in the reports. Especially after the New Moon Chamber of Commerce broadcast the various tragic scenes in Drow City through the large-scale magic illusion projectors in the various cities. When people saw the incomparably tragic scenes in the magic illusion projectors, the flames of anger in their hearts were ignited. Whether it was the female corpses that had obviously been raped before they died and could only be thrown on the street naked after they died, or the corpses that had been decapitated without an inch of intact skin, or the corpses of young children who were still in the stage of learning to speak, they all clearly reflected the madness and cruelty displayed by this period of riot. These Deluo clansmen were actually so crazy. As a result, the entire signs was shaken. Almost all of the countries expressed their stance at the same time, condemning and angering the Drow Kingdom. At the same time, all the major newspapers called for immediate intervention to stop the riot. In many countries, there were even countless ordinary people spontaneously organizing demonstrations to express their anger. All of a sudden, the chaos in the Drow Kingdom attracted the attention of the entire signs. Most of them were concerned about how to resolve the riot and rescue the foreigners who had been harmed in the riot. As for the Lampari Kingdom, the Kingdom of Ruhr, the Drake Duchy, and the other countries that had suffered cruel treatment, they made it clear that they would do their best to save their citizens in the Drow Kingdom and try to reduce their losses. However, New Flyer was undoubtedly the one that received the most attention out of all the factions that had expressed their stance. According to the reports of the major newspapers, the ones that had suffered the greatest losses in the riot were the various institutions and factories that New Flyer had set up in the Drow Kingdom. It was said that not only had those institutions and factories suffered losses because of the riot, but many of the New Flyer's employees had also lost their lives and were even treated cruelly. Countless people were very concerned about how New Flyer would respond to this. And New Flyer didn't disappoint. The day after the scenes of the riot in the Drow Kingdom were projected through the various large magic illusion projectors, New Flyer's chairman, Sue E., represented New Flyer in making a public statement. In the statement, Sue E. said that New Flyer had already sent out New Flyer guards as soon as they received the news of the riot to provide assistance to all the foreigners in the Drow Kingdom. This assistance didn't only include the employees of New Flyer, but also any foreigners who had been targeted. This statement immediately attracted a lot of praise. Almost all the newspapers reported this statement and said that New Flyer was only a chamber of commerce, but they were willing to take such risks for unrelated people. They were a chamber of commerce with a high sense of responsibility and conscience, which was something that the other major chambers of commerce could learn from. But Su Yi's statement didn't stop there. After saying that they would do their best to rescue the people trapped in the riot, Su Yi also said that New Flyer would investigate the riot in the Drow Kingdom to the end. The Drow Kingdom had done such a crazy and shocking thing, so they had to pay the price. If the chairman of a chamber of commerce made such a statement, they would definitely be mercilessly ridiculed. Because in the end, a chamber of commerce was still a chamber of commerce, and was completely different from a country. If the rebellion in the Drow Kingdom wasn't officially sanctioned and secretly encouraged by the Drow Kingdom, it would be impossible for such a thing to happen. So if they wanted to investigate, it would definitely develop into a direct confrontation with the Drow Kingdom. Using a chamber of commerce to go against a country, it would be overestimating themselves in a normal situation. However, New Flyer didn't belong to this normal category. After hearing Su Yi's statement, everyone immediately confirmed it in their hearts. The Drow Kingdom was out of luck. What happened next was just as everyone expected. On the 14th of June, the New Flyers guards landed in the Drow Kingdom's capital Drow City through the magic airship. In just 2 days, the New Flyers guards had taken control of the situation in Drow City. During this process, the New Flyers guards had killed over 2,000 Drow City riders. They had even been attacked by a group of Drow City rioters, but in the end, the New Flyers guards had easily killed over 500 riders. 5 days later, The New Flyers Guards had a conflict with the Drow Kingdom's royal guards. In the end, the New Flyers Guards had completely wiped out the royal guards, taking control of the royal palace and King Wark. In the next 10 days, the New Flyers Guards had taken full control of Drow City and had fought with the reinforcements sent from other parts of the Drow Kingdom. After 7 battles, they had wiped out over 20,000 of the Drow Kingdom's regular army and the nobles' private army. 20 days later, the Lampari Kingdom, the Kingdom of Ruhr, and the Drake Duchy sent out a total of 8,000 people and a new batch of 2,000 New Flyers Guards. They landed in the south of the Duchy of Wales and headed north into the Drow Kingdom. A month later, King Wark represented the Drow Kingdom to announce that they had given up resistance and surrendered. From the moment the New Flyers Guards entered the Drow Kingdom to King Wark's surrender, it had only taken a single month. In this 1 month's time, the only ones that were of any use were the 3,000 guards that the New Flyers sent out. As for the Lampari Kingdom's troops and the 2,000 New Flyers Guards, they were only there to further stabilize the situation. They didn't engage in any formal battles at all. When King Wark officially announced his surrender, almost no one in the Signs was surprised. 6 years ago, the New Flyer could easily defeat the Mana Magic Kingdom. Even a magus like Levin Hasek had died because he attacked the New Flyer. How could the Drow Kingdom, which was only average in strength in the Signs, withstand the attack of the New Flyer? In the evaluation of this event in the major newspapers, almost all of them didn't describe the outcome of the battle. This was because everyone felt that the New Flyer would definitely emerge victorious. What everyone was interested in was the shocking military magic machines that the New Flyer had taken out after 5 years of development. Think about it. The New Flyer 6 years ago was enough to defeat the Mana Magic Kingdom and even kill a magus. Then, the New Flyer 5 years later would be even more terrifying. Therefore, everyone was very concerned about the performance of the New Flyers Guards in the battle against the Drow Kingdom's army, and whether they had shown anything new. The New Flyer didn't disappoint them. Not only did they generously let the famous newspapers from the Kanla Empire and the Malar Empire send people to report the entire battle, they even used the illusion recording device that was compatible with the illusion magic projectors to record the battle and then used the large-scale magic illusion projectors to show it to the public. Through these illusions, people found that the current New Flyer was much stronger compared to 6 years ago. First, the first batch of 3,000 New Flyer Guards had used the magic airships to cross the 4,000 kilometers between the Principality of Constantine and the Drow Kingdom, arriving above Drow City in just 2 days. This kind of terrifying speed and distance was something that the other countries on the continent didn't dare imagine. The key to this was the 10 magic airships that were several times bigger than normal magic airships. Chapter 10:24. According to the information released by the New Flyer, these giant magic airships were the large transport magic airships that the New Flyer had been rumored to have before. It was said that they could hold as much as 2 large transport magic cars. Moreover, the New Flyer said that they would strengthen their research in the future, increasing the capacity of the transport magic airships. Other than this, the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's guards had taken out many small military magic machines that seemed very new and exquisite. Although these military magic machines seemed small and were only suited for a single soldier, they weren't weak at all. Based on the images of the battle, the New Flyer Guards didn't show any mercy when suppressing the rioters. They just used the rectangular military magic machines in their hands to spray at the rioters, and the rioters fell to the ground in flames, not being able to resist at all. There were even some rioters who had their limbs broken by these strange military magic machines, which showed how strong they were. After that, in the battle between the New Flyer Guards and the Drow Kingdom's Royal Palace Guards and the reinforcements from all over, the New Flyer Guards had displayed even more terrifying battle strength. In these battles, the New Flyer Guards didn't even have a single guard participating, they just sent out the magic airships to bombard the enemy. Whether it was the Royal Palace Guards, the regular army, or the noble army, they were all blown to pieces before they could even approach. Although this battle had lasted for a month, from beginning to end, the casualty rate of the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's guards was 0. After the real-time battle situation and the final battle report came out, even though most people on the continent were mentally prepared, they were still shocked speechless. The new flyer really was stronger than 6 years ago. It was so strong that it surpassed people's imaginations. It had to be known, the Drow Kingdom was one of the countries recognized as a third-grade magic machine industry by the new flyer. They had obtained some military magic machines from the new flyer, so they had quite a good battle strength compared to the surrounding countries. However, when facing the new flyer guards, it was like a child facing a fully armed adult. They couldn't resist at all. Everyone was certain that if the new flyer from 6 years ago had their current strength, the Mana Magic Kingdom wouldn't be a threat to the new flyer at all. And Archmagus Levin Hasek wouldn't even dare attack the new flyer. Although most people were focused on the strength of the Frestek Chamber of Commerce's guards, they still had to deal with the Drow Kingdom. After King Wark announced his surrender to the outside world, he announced his abdication. Then he was arrested by the new flyer guards for secretly instructing and condoning the riot, and brought back to the Principality of Constantine. He was prepared to be tried by the Lamy Kingdom, the Kingdom of Ruhr, the Drake Duchy, and the Lamy Kingdom, the Kingdom of Ruhr, the Kingdom of Ruhr, the Kingdom of Ruhr, and the Duchy of Drake, and the other countries to the Principality. And other countries. B. At the same time, the former king's son, as well as King Wark's nephew, the 4-year-old Prince Phipps, took over the throne and became the new king of the Drow Kingdom. At the same time, the new flyers set up a base in the Drow Kingdom, stationed 3,000 guards as the new flyer stronghold in the Drow Kingdom. When it was announced to the public, the purpose of this base was to ensure the safety and smooth operation of the new flyer's various organizations and factories in the Drow Kingdom. However, everyone knew that this was clearly a nail that the new flyer had set up in the Drow Kingdom. The goal was probably to ensure control of the Drow Kingdom. All the newspapers on the continent remained silent regarding the new flyer's actions, which meant that no country had any objections. Even the two empires didn't raise any objections. Even the Kamla Empire publicly expressed their support for the new flyer's actions. At the same time, they said that the Kamla Empire would set up similar military bases in other countries in the future to ensure the safety of their citizens in other countries. Although the Malar Empire didn't make the same decision, they also expressed their approval for the new flyer's actions. They also expressed their willingness to cooperate with the new flyer in this area, hoping that the two sides could reach a strategic partnership. The Malar Empire's announcement shocked the entire continent. Ever since the new flyer announced the strategic partnership plan, although countless countries on the signs took the initiative to seek to establish this partnership with the new flyer, the Kamla Empire and the Malar Empire never verbally agreed to this strategic partnership, no matter how much they cooperated with the new flyer in private. In everyone's guesses, they felt that these two empires were relying on their status and weren't willing to form a strategic partnership with a trivial company like the Frestek Chamber of Commerce. But now, the Malar Empire took the initiative to make this request. This was a change from their previous style, which naturally made everyone shocked, because this meant that the Malar Empire finally treated the new flyer as an equal, a partner that they could truly cooperate with. If one were to expand from this point, one would discover a terrifying fact. Right now, in the signs, apart from the two empires, no other country dared to go against the new flyer's intentions. Because the Mana Magic Kingdom and the Darrow Kingdom had already suffered a painful lesson. And now, even the Malar Empire recognized the new flyer. Didn't this mean that the new flyer, a mere company, already had a status equal to the two empires? This was a chamber of commerce. But thinking about it, no one felt that this was wrong. The new flyer was indeed a company, but the new flyer was different from any other company on the signs. It was even different from any other company in the history of the signs. Because before this, there had never been a chamber of commerce that possessed such a frightening armed force. In front of the powerful new flyer guards, even the regular army of the Mana Magic Kingdom, which was known as the third most powerful country on the continent, could not withstand a single blow. And although the two empires had not officially fought with the new flyer guards, no one doubted that the new flyer guards could win. The reason was very simple. The new flyer had military magic machines that were far more powerful than anyone could imagine. These powerful military magic machines could even kill a Grand Magus. The new flyer had absolute military strength. At the same time, it had extremely strong economic capabilities. It almost completely controlled the most promising magic industry on the continent. No country could refuse it. Even the power of the mages in the new flyer was only slightly inferior to the two empires. Combining all of this, the new flyer was certainly comparable to the two empires. In fact, it might even surpass the two empires. In the opinion of many people, the only thing that could stop the new flyer from dominating the continent was time and Su Yi's strange ideas. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. That's why I said, these guys are all lowly wretches. Su Yi looked at the dozen or so documents and invitations in his hands and slowly shook his head. I told them for a long time before about the benefits of vigorously developing the magic industry, but these guys didn't believe me. Now that we've taught the Drow Kingdom a lesson, these guys took the initiative to come forward. Kennard laughed on the side. Chairman, isn't this the result you expected from the start? Yes, I expected that teaching the Drow Kingdom a lesson would enlighten some of them. But I didn't expect. Even the Malar Empire and the Kamla Empire, these two arrogant fellows, would lower their heads. Su Yi sighed. Especially the Kamla Empire. I thought that they would hold onto their pride as an ancient empire until their deaths. Although they are arrogant, they are not stupid. Kennard smiled. Before the Malar Empire didn't lower their arrogance, they could still hold on. But now that the Malar Empire is willing to lower their arrogance, they won't be able to hold on. In the end, the Malar Empire is more pragmatic than the Kamla Empire. Su Yi threw away all the documents and invitations in his hand before saying to Kennard, I won't be seeing these fellows. Arrange a time and gather the ambassadors of these countries together. It'll be fine if you talk to them. Okay, Kennard nodded. Ever since he became the CEO of the New Flyer, Su Yi no longer participated in these specific affairs. And when the New Flyer went through the restructuring and the various departments were separated to form their own chambers of commerce, Su Yi became a hands-off boss and no longer cared about anything. He only focused his energy on a few things that he was interested in. This time, dispatching the New Flyer guards to solve the Drow Kingdom incident was one of the few things that Su Yi participated in. Thinking of Su Yi's ugly expression when he heard about the riots in the Drow Kingdom, Kennard couldn't help but look at Su Yi with some doubt. Although he was also very angry when he saw those cruel scenes, he didn't express it as intensely as Su Yi. When the upper echelons of the Chamber of Commerce were discussing how to deal with this matter, Su even said that he wanted to send out the entire New Flyer guards and directly raze the Drow Kingdom to the ground, which shocked the upper echelons of the Chamber of Commerce. In the many years that Kennard knew Su Yi, this was the first time he saw Su Yi show such obvious anger. He believed that if it weren't for the upper echelons of the Chamber of Commerce dissuading him, Su Yi might really do such a thing. Thinking of this, Kennard suddenly had an idea. Chapter 1025. Sir Chairman, do you have any plans for the Drow Kingdom in the future? Kennard asked. Drow Kingdom? Su Yi knit his brows. He shook his head and threw out the cruel and terrifying scenes of the riot that filled his mind. Before this, although he had lived on the continent for more than 10 years, when he looked at the other people of the Signs continent, he always had an objective attitude of not caring about them and rarely truly immersed himself in them. However, after seeing the tragic scenes of the riot in the Drow Kingdom, this was the first time he felt a bit of hatred that came from the bottom of his heart. If he judged it from a personal point of view, he really wanted to exterminate the Drow clan. However, his reason told him that even if there were countless Drow clansmen that participated in the riot, that didn't mean that the Drow clansmen were all sinners. From an objective point of view, if he exterminated the Drow clan because of this, what difference was there between him and the Drow clansmen that participated in the riot? After thinking for a bit, Su Yi replied, Now that the company's guards have entered the Drow Kingdom, as long as we strengthen our control over the Drow Kingdom, those despicable Drow clansmen won't be able to cause any more trouble. So I'm asking. A strange look appeared on Kennard's face. Sir Chairman, have you thought about how to strengthen your control over the Drow Kingdom? He was a bit surprised. Seeing Kennard's deep look, he asked back, "What do you want to say?" Sir Chairman, the Drow Kingdom is over 4,000 kilometers away from our company's main base. Even with the help of the magic airship, it will take close to 2 days to get there. With such a long distance, it's very hard for us to truly control the Drow Kingdom with just 3,000 guards. So I'm thinking, should we be a bit more thorough? Oh, what do you think is considered thorough enough? He looked at Kennard with an interested look. Seeing that he was interested, Kennard was shocked. He stood up and walked over to the map of the signs on the wall, slapping the Drow Kingdom on the map. Sir Chairman, look, the Drow Kingdom is connected to the Canla Empire to the west, the eastern countries of the continent to the east, and 1,000 kilometers to the south is the Endless Sea. It can be considered the most important country in the eastern part of the continent. If we want to promote our company's products to the eastern and northeastern countries, we can't avoid the Drow Kingdom. And I know this. That's why I've sent guards to the Drow Kingdom. It's to make it easier for the company to operate in the future. Sir President, you have great foresight. Of course, you can see the importance of the Drow Kingdom. But I feel that you haven't done enough, Kenneth said seriously. What is it that I haven't done enough? You should know that the Drow Kingdom can be considered a single nation made up entirely of the Drow clan. This kind of nation can be said to be the most cohesive, but also the most dangerous. Although we've used force to suppress the Drow clan's resistance, I'm sure that after they've calmed down, they will inevitably clash with the outsiders in the Drow Kingdom. And the guards that our company has left there will become their primary target. Your concerns are not wrong. This is also something I've been worried about. He nodded. If it's only 3,000 guards, it's not a problem to protect the base and control part of the region. But it's a bit difficult to control the entire Drow Kingdom. But our company only has 20,000 guards. It's impossible to send that many people. That's why we should be a bit more thorough. Since it's impossible to completely control the Drow clan, it's better to just eliminate them. That way we won't have to worry about this problem. He looked at Kennard in surprise and said with a frown, "I thought you would give a more constructive suggestion. Eliminating all the Drow clan might not be difficult for us, but we can't bear the consequences of doing so. Something like exterminating an entire clan would have a serious impact on anyone's reputation, not to mention that we're a company that places great importance on reputation." No. Sir Chairman, you misunderstand. When I said exterminate the Darrow clansmen, I didn't mean exterminate them physically, but spiritually. Spiritually? He looked at Kennard with a puzzled expression. How do we do that? The reason why the Darrow clansmen are so united and xenophobic is because almost all of the Darrow clansmen live their entire lives in the Darrow Kingdom and never go to other places. If we can disperse them, their cohesiveness will naturally weaken. If we increase the ratio of people inside and outside the Drow Kingdom, then as time passes, the number of Drow clan in the Drow Kingdom will decrease, and this problem will no longer exist. He looked at the eloquent Kennard and couldn't help but laugh in his heart. He had to admit that Kennard's idea was very creative, but in terms of practicality, it was almost nil. On Earth, there were countless cases of people wanting to divide a clan and thus disintegrate it from the inside. However, every case had to pay an extremely painful price, and the final result was always a mess. Although he didn't dare to say that he knew the signs like the back of his hand, but according to Earth's history, it was almost impossible to rely on Kennard's idea to solve the problem of the Drow clan. Of course, he wouldn't directly say his own judgment, but after thinking for a while, he nodded to Kennard and said, "You can try this idea. But I have to remind you that this method will take a lot of effort and a long time. Are you sure you want to do this?" Kennard rolled his eyes and didn't answer this question. Instead, he asked, "Then, Sir President, there is a much simpler method. That is to directly destroy the Drow Kingdom and bring it under the name of our new flyer. What do you think?" He looked at the anticipation in Kennard's eyes and didn't say anything. This wasn't the first time he heard this suggestion. During this time, there were many high-level members of the Frestac Chamber of Commerce who had mentioned this when discussing the Drow Kingdom rebellion with Sui. Even Archmagus Camilla had said that it's better to just make this country disappear. It had to be admitted that this suggestion was very feasible and tempting. For the people of the signs, it wasn't strange for countries to fight each other and even lead to the destruction of a country. During the expansion of the two empires hundreds of years ago, they had destroyed countless small countries. The tradition of the signs was that the strong were the kings. If you were killed by a powerful enemy, you could only blame yourself for being weak and couldn't blame others. Therefore, if you directly sent troops to destroy a country in the signs, you wouldn't be subjected to endless public criticism and social pressure like on Earth. Instead, it would only make others more respectful of your strength. In this kind of atmosphere, even though the New Flyer was only a chamber of commerce and couldn't be considered a country, as long as you had the ability to destroy the Drow Kingdom, the people of the signs wouldn't say anything. Not to mention, if one were to calculate the influence of public opinion, most of the newspapers and the most effective magic illusion projectors that could influence public opinion were directly or indirectly controlled by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce. There was no need to worry at all. Even Su Yi himself had seriously considered this suggestion because this was the most simple and crude method to solve this problem. However, there was a problem that was difficult to solve, so Su Yi couldn't really use this plan. As mentioned before, the New Flyer was a chamber of commerce and not a country. The biggest difference between a chamber of commerce and a country was that a chamber of commerce was only responsible for its own management and didn't need to pay attention to other aspects. Even though the New Flyer scale was countless times larger than before, with the total number of employees under its name reaching close to 200,000, and its various branches spread across almost all the countries on the continent. However, the New Flyer was still only responsible for matters related to the Chamber of Commerce. Compared to a country's economy, people's livelihood, politics, land, security, and so on, a Chamber of Commerce needed much less time to consider. Even if the Principality of Constantine, which could be considered the smallest chamber of commerce in the signs, the matters that the Parliament needed to deal with were numerous and extremely complicated. With the resources that Su Yi currently had, it wasn't enough to develop the New Flyer, let alone control an entire country. Moreover, Su Yi was very self-aware. It was already a bit difficult for him to manage a chamber of commerce, so he had given a lot of management matters to his subordinates like Kennard. If he were to become the head of a country and manage an entire country, he would be thanking the heavens if he didn't become an incapable ruler. Moreover, he wasn't interested in this at all. As a mechanical engineer who had been passionate about mechanical research since he was young, his greatest interest was in mechanical research. After transmigrating to this continent, his dream was to perfectly combine magic, something that didn't exist on Earth, with machinery to create a complete magic industrial system that belonged to this continent. The reason why he was vigorously developing military magic machines was only to support him in realizing this dream. Destroying the Drow Kingdom wasn't difficult for the powerful New Flyer guards, but how to deal with it after destroying the Drow Kingdom was the biggest problem. All kinds of problems flashed through Su Yi's mind. Then he shook his head at Kennard and said, "Directly destroying the Drow Kingdom is too troublesome. If you're willing to spend a lot of energy and have enough patience, then I'll allow you to use the Chamber of Commerce's limited resources to realize your first idea." Kennard immediately smiled. "Sir Chairman, as I expected, you'll still make this choice." Su Yi smiled, tacitly agreeing. Chapter 1026. Watching the office door slowly close, Su Yi's right hand, which was resting on the table, curled up and tapped the table lightly. He frowned slightly and fell in a deep thought. He had known Kennard for more than 12 years, and Kennard had also worked under him for 12 years. In these 12 years, Kennard had always been an outstanding CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. He was fully in charge of New Flyer's internal management and many external affairs. It had to be said that Kennard was indeed worthy of being the successor of the Emma family. He had superb qualities in many aspects and was very suitable for this management position that required great ability. He had managed New Flyer well for the past 12 years and saved Su Yi a lot of energy and time. If possible, He certainly hoped that he could continue working for New Flyer like this until he finally grew old. However, from Kennard's words, he smelled a trace of something unusual. That was ambition. Yes, ambition. In the 12 years that Kennard had worked for New Flyer, he had basically been doing his best for New Flyer according to Su Yi's development strategy and had never overstepped the bounds. However, his suggestion today revealed that he had his own ambitions after all. In other words, this also represented the ambition of many people in the Chamber of Commerce. He had always been willing to treat and manage New Flyer as a simple Chamber of Commerce and set the direction for New Flyer's development. However, many of the higher-ups in New Flyer, including Kennard, probably didn't think so. In the past, when New Flyer was still small and weak, this couldn't be reflected. However, after the conflict with the Mana Magic Kingdom 6 years ago and the conflict with the Drow Kingdom this year, everyone discovered that New Flyer's strength had unknowingly become incomparably powerful. Even the two empires had to be somewhat apprehensive. This made some people's minds become active, including Kennard. Although Kennard's second proposal to directly destroy the Drow Kingdom was only briefly mentioned, He could see that this was his true intention. Unlike the Principality of Constantine, if New Flyer really dispatched troops to destroy the Drow Kingdom, then according to the rules of the continent and the strength that New Flyer had displayed, all the countries and people of the continent would tacitly agree that the Drow Kingdom would be included under New Flyer's name. He didn't doubt this and didn't doubt that New Flyer's guards had the ability to do this. But if New Flyer really included the Drow Kingdom under its name, then it couldn't be like the Principality of Constantine, where it only used a national assembly as a cover to secretly control it. Instead, it had to establish a government organization that belonged to New Flyer to control it. And if it really did so, the nature of New Flyer would inevitably change, and it would officially transform from an ordinary merchant to a national organization. This change was undoubtedly huge, but it was something that Kennard and some of the higher-ups of New Flyer were happy to see. After all, to the people of the Signs, especially the nobles who were influenced by traditional thinking, the control of land was extremely important. In their opinion, no matter how powerful merchants were, they couldn't control enough land, and their status was actually far inferior to the nobles. If New Flyer could officially control the entire Drow Kingdom, it would be a huge leap for Kennard. This was something that Kennard had vaguely revealed to Su Yi more than once when they worked together in the past few years. And this time, his declaration could be said to be very blatant. Or perhaps it could be said that this could be considered a test for him, to test Su Yi's attitude towards this. If Su Yi was willing to do so, then with New Flyer's current strength, it wouldn't be difficult to achieve the goal of eliminating the Drow Kingdom and making it completely fall under New Flyer's name. And once this goal was achieved, Su Yi could imagine that New Flyer was bound to go further and further on this path in the future, eventually embarking on the path of conquering the entire continent. When that time came, perhaps even if Su Yi wasn't willing, he would have no choice but to do so. But I'm not willing now, Su Yi sighed softly. At this time, he really wished that he was one of those overlord-level protagonists who wanted to conquer the world after transmigrating. But he knew that he wasn't this type, and he really wasn't interested. If he forced himself to do it, there might not be a good result in the end. Moreover, establishing a country and conquering the continent was easy to say, but it was actually very hard to do. Su Yi wasn't interested in this, and didn't have the time. So for the ambition in the hearts of Kennard and the other high-level members of New Flyer, Su Yi could only apologize. Perhaps Kennard will regret following the wrong person. Su Yi gave a self-deprecating laugh. After thinking for a bit, he stood up and left the office. After leaving the company's main building, Su Yi drove the magic sedan and headed to the seaside. It was already the middle of August, the hottest time of the year. The hot sun shined down from above, making the interior of the magic sedan very hot. Su Yi didn't turn on the magic air conditioner in the magic sedan. Rather, he opened all the windows and increased the speed. With the hot wind blowing in his face, he quickly headed to the seaside. Not long after, He arrived at a lookout on a cliff by the seaside. "Sir Chairman, you're here again." When he got out of the car, there was a clear call that came from above. He looked up at the young man, wearing the uniform of the new flyer, who was looking down from the lookout. He waved his hand with a smile before activating his magic and flying up. "Bensack, how is it? Have you found anything in the past few days?" He walked over to the side of the lookout that was close to the sea as he asked the young man this. "Nothing." The young man called Bensack shook his head. The young man shook his head. "If there really was anything, I would have told you as soon as possible." He nodded, not commenting on this answer. When he came to the edge of the lookout, he used the special binoculars placed here to look at the sea in the distance. He found that, because it was close to the afternoon, there was a trace of red in the sunlight reflected off the sea. It wasn't as white as it was at noon. Looking at the horizon and the sky in the distance, he slightly knit his brows. The exploration fleet had already been out for close to 10 months, but there was still no news from them at all. He couldn't help being a bit worried. Although they had agreed to finish this exploration within a year, with the speed of the magic boats, even if the planet under them was bigger than Earth, it shouldn't be a problem for the exploration fleet to go around the world 2 or 3 times in 10 months. Adding in the things that happened along the way, there was more than enough time for 10 months. Thinking of this, he couldn't help looking up at the sky. He had considered this problem before. If he could install a few communication satellites on this planet, he wouldn't have to worry about communicating with the exploration fleet. But for the current signs, this technology was too far away, so he could only accept reality. "Sir Chairman, is there something troubling you?" Bensack on the side saw looking at the sky with knitted brows, and he couldn't help asking this in a curious voice. He turned to look and waved his hand with a smile. He had many things to worry about, but whether it was the differences between him and the high-level members of the new flyer represented by Kennard, or the fact that they couldn't communicate with the exploration fleet, Bensack, who was only responsible for watching the lookout, couldn't help him. After looking at the sea in the distance, he patted Bensack's shoulder. After encouraging him with a few words, he flew down and planned on leaving. "Mr. President, when will you be coming again?" Bensack suddenly rushed over and shouted loudly. He waved his hand at him. "I'll come when I'm in the mood. Just watch carefully." Bensack muttered before moving back in a dejected manner. He thought that Sir Chairman would come here every other day because he liked him and was planning on promoting him. But looking at Sir Chairman's attitude, it didn't seem like he had this intention at all. Could it be that I have to stay in this boring place? Hearing the sound of the magic sedan under the lookout, Bensack gave a sigh and looked at the sea in the distance through the special binoculars. Was there to look at? Sir Chairman actually cares this much? Isn't it just the sea? It isn't strange at all. Bensack's eyes suddenly popped out as he looked at the horizon in the distance. He quickly reacted and rushed to the lookout as fast as he could. "Sir Chairman, there's a situation. There's a situation." He had just turned the magic sedan around and was prepared to leave when he heard Bensack shout and stopped in surprise. "What's the situation?" He poked his head out the window as he asked. "That, by the sea. There's something." Bensack waved his hand, looking like he was talking nonsense. There's something flying over." "Flying over?" He was surprised. His first reaction was that it was a seabird, but then he thought that if it was a seabird, Bensack wouldn't be this excited. Then he thought of another possibility. Could it be a magic airship sent by the exploration fleet? Thinking of this, he opened the door and used his magic, instantly reaching the lookout tower. Over there. Bensack pointed at the sea in the distance as he spoke to in an anxious voice. He quickly came in front of the special binoculars and looked into the distance. After a while, he slightly opened his mouth and said a word filled with shock. "Dragon." Chapter 10:27. Signs was a continent with many races. Based on the current situation in Signs, humans were undoubtedly the most important race. Their total population was more than 90% of all the intelligent races in Signs. Of the remaining 10%, The largest number should be the orcs, followed by the dwarves and the elves. But apart from these few races, there were actually many different intelligent races in signs a long time ago. Among them, there was the halflings that he had only seen once since he transmigrated. There were also the goblins, lizard men, wood fairies, and so on, which he had never seen before. But among all the races, the most legendary and recognized as the most powerful race in all the legends was undoubtedly the dragon race. Yes, the dragon race once existed in this continent. According to the various legends and information that he had read, it was said that the dragon race was still very active in this continent more than 3,000 years ago. But after that, their numbers gradually dwindled until they completely disappeared after the war between the races. It was said that the dragon race lost their interest in signs because the elves lost control over it and turned to find another place that was more suitable for them. It was also said that the dragon race actually relied on their strong physical bodies and innate powerful magic to directly transmigrate to another space and were no longer in this world. In short, the dragon race was originally an extremely small minority in signs, and later on, they disappeared without a trace. Moreover, the dragon race's body was huge, and any activity would attract attention, so no one would think that they did not want to be discovered. Moreover, the dragon race had always been arrogant and would not hide from humans forever. After flipping through countless information, He could only confirm that the dragon race had also become a legendary creature, and perhaps unlike the halflings who left behind a fire seed like Rumi, he was afraid that he would never see a dragon in his life. But now, through this special telescope, He could clearly see a dragon. Its two huge bat-like wings flapped slowly, propelling its huge lizard-like body to fly quickly in the sky above the endless sea. There was an equally long and sharp horn on top of its long and pointed head. Coupled with the unusually sharp teeth in its slightly open mouth, it looked ferocious. It was almost exactly the same as the dragons recorded in the legends, so He recognized it at a glance. Is it really a dragon? When Bensak heard Yi's exclamation, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva with great difficulty. With a look of panic, he said, "God above, it was a real dragon. President, what do we do now? That was a dragon. Could it be here to attack us?" He stared at the flying dragon, and after confirming that he wasn't seeing things, he said to Bensak in a deep voice, "Report this to the higher-ups immediately. Pass down my order. The guards of the Chamber of Commerce are to prepare to meet the attack, but they are not to take the initiative to attack. Do you understand?" Yes. Bensak nodded repeatedly and then reacted. "President, you want to pass down the order. Then do you plan to? I'll go take a look." After He said this, his figure instantly disappeared. Bensak was startled. He hurriedly went to the special telescope and found that Yi's figure had already appeared in the sky in the distance. He was not far away from the flying dragon. "President," Bensak was taken aback. He then remembered Yi's order and quickly picked up the magic communicator next to him. "Emergency! Emergency! Lookout Tower 37 spotted a dragon flying towards them. Pay attention, it's a dragon. President has personally met the attack, and at the same time ordered hashtag. As soon as Yi's figure flashed out, the dragon had already sensed it. Then it completely defied the laws of physics and directly stopped in the air. Feeling Yi's gaze on itself, the dragon's two huge eyes also stared at Yi without blinking. For some reason, He felt a hint of curiosity in its eyes, as if it was also sizing him up. In any case, at least the dragon didn't immediately attack Yi when it saw him, which made him feel a lot more at ease. After the man and dragon looked at each other for a while, Yi thought for a moment and raised his hand to greet the dragon. Who knew that as soon as he raised his hand, the dragon immediately flapped its wings and flew back a distance. Then there was a slight change in its eyes that stared at Yi, which made Yi immediately feel a sense of vigilance. Yi was stunned, but at the same time he found it funny. Isn't this a dragon? How can it express so much with just one look? It's no different from a human. Moreover, it's the most powerful race in the legends, the dragon race. Why did it put on such a vigilant look when it saw me, a human, raise my hand? Looking at the dragon that was several hundred meters away from him, Su-yi didn't know what to do for a moment. The records of the dragon race had long become all kinds of legends and stories. No one knew what to do when they met a real dragon. After a moment of silence, Su-yi slightly moved the magic in his body and cast a sound amplification spell on himself. He shouted at the dragon opposite him, "Hey, hello, friend from the dragon race." He spoke in the common language of the signs. Legend has it that the dragon race was one of the most powerful and intelligent races. When they lived in the signs, they could easily master many foreign languages such as the human language, the elven language, and the dwarven language. However, Su-yi didn't dare to guarantee that this dragon could understand him. After all, the dragon race had disappeared from this continent for thousands of years. When the dragon heard Su-yi's voice, it seemed to size up Su-yi in confusion for a while before opening its huge dragon mouth. Then, it spoke in an unusually standard language of the continent. "Human, do you know the new flyer?" Su-yi looked at the dragon in front of him, his expression extremely interesting. Heavens, it's one thing for a dragon to suddenly appear, and it's one thing for this dragon to speak the standard language of the continent. But why did it say the words "new flyer" the moment it opened its mouth? "Hey, human, I'm asking you a question. Do you know the new flyer? Or rather, do you know the humans of the new flyer? I want to tell them something." Su-yi still hadn't recovered from his shock and could only nod blankly. "Ah, I know. I'm from the new flyer." "Very good. Since you're from the new flyer, then tell your chairman. It should be a human called Su-yi, right? Tell him that the fleet your company sent out needs help." Hearing the word fleet, Su-yi's body trembled, and he instantly came back to his senses. "You said fleet? How do you know about the fleet our company sent out? Have you been in contact with them? You learned about the new flyer from them? Did something happen to them? Why do they need help? Where are they now?" "Human, you have too many questions." That dragon seemed a bit impatient. After flapping its wings a few times, it flew towards the coast behind Su-yi. Su-yi didn't dare delay and quickly chased after it. This dragon was very fast. It wasn't that much slower than the magic airship. It forced Su-yi to use spatial teleportation spells several times to catch up. Very soon, a human and a dragon came to the shore and landed on the beach under the watchtower Bensak was guarding. When Su-yi's feet touched the ground, he immediately felt the magic fluctuations that came from the surrounding space. Minter Carmilla, Cray the Sorcerer, Great Magician Tenna, and Great Magician Talachi, these were the strongest magicians of the new flyer. When they saw the huge dragon that was as tall as a 5-story building, everyone was shocked. Then, they put on a defensive look. Su-yi quickly stopped them. "Don't be impulsive. This dragon isn't hostile." Minter Carmilla and the others carefully looked at the dragon and found that the dragon was also looking at them, not revealing any hostility. They relaxed a bit, but they still didn't let down their guard. "Human, are they also from the new flyer?" The dragon slightly turned its head to ask Su-yi this. "Yes, that's right. Let me introduce myself. I am a president of the new flyer, Su-yi. May I ask, how should I address you?" Minter Carmilla and the others looked at Su-yi strangely. This guy could actually maintain such a calm appearance in front of a dragon, and even have a normal conversation with it. "I also have a name. In your human language, you can call me Cassandra." "Cassandra?" Su-yi had a strange expression and couldn't help muttering, "That sounds like a girl's name because I am a girl." The dragon named Cassandra replied. The expressions of Su-yi, Minter Carmilla, and the others became even more strange. All right, it wasn't easy for a dragon to appear, but it turned out to be a female. All right, it was a girl from the dragon race. Cough. Then Miss Cassandra, you said that the fleet we sent out needed help. What's going on? Something happened to the fleet. Minter Carmilla and the others were taken aback. Su-yi pointed at Cassandra and motioned for Minter Carmilla to listen first. "It's too troublesome to explain. Let me show you this so you can understand faster." The space in front of Cassandra suddenly distorted, and a small square box appeared from the space, floating in the air. Do any of you have a magic illusion projector? Chapter 1028. Sue, E, and the others looked at each other in blank dismay. This legendary female, all right, this young female dragon not only knew how to speak the common language of the continent, she also knew about the new flyer. Now, she could even say the words, magic illusion projector. Weren't the dragons keeping up with the times too much? It was a good thing Sue E quickly reacted. He thought that this dragon should have come in contact with the new Flyer Ocean exploration fleet and learned about these things from them. Great Magician Runa, I'll have to trouble you to bring a magic illusion projector from the company. Great Magician Runa nodded before disappearing. Sue E turned to look at Cassandra, carefully looking over this dragon that had jumped out of Legends. Miss Cassandra, I have a question to ask. Your dragon race, is there only you left? Why do you think that? Cassandra looked at Sue E with a strange look in her eyes. Our dragon race has the strongest vitality among all the intelligent races. You humans haven't gone extinct yet. So how could there only be me left? Since it's like this, then your dragon race should have left signs 2,000 years ago and lived in another place, right? Does this mean that there is another continent in this world? Sue asked. Cassandra let out 2 breaths from her large nostrils, and her voice was filled with ridicule. That's why I say you humans are truly narrow-minded. Could it be that you always thought that this world only had a single continent like the Signs continent? Let me tell you, other than Signs, there are several other continents in this world. Signs can't even be considered the largest continent, and you've always been hiding on this continent. You think that controlling Signs is controlling the entire world? What a joke. Teacher Carmilla and the others behind Sue E revealed looks of shock. Although there had always been guesses about other continents, no one had ever been able to prove it. Now that this dragon who had suddenly appeared had personally confirmed that there was another continent outside the Signs continent, it created a powerful impact on their hearts. Sue E didn't feel much, since he had confirmed through various observations that he was on a planet that was very similar to Earth. He was certain that there shouldn't only be a single continent on this planet. The humans of the Signs continent were limited by their level of technology, so they couldn't explore the endless seas. Sue Yi's appearance had given the continent the rapid development of magic machine research, allowing humans to finally form a fleet to explore this world. But Sue Yi never would have thought that when the exploration fleet went out to explore, they didn't come back and instead found a legendary dragon that was sent over. But this time, you humans finally had the courage to explore the endless sea and even found the habitat of my race. This is worthy of praise, Cassandra continued. Also, it's only been 2,000 years since we last met. You humans have actually created so many strange and interesting things. How unexpected. Strange and interesting things? So he was a bit confused. Could it be that the large steel magic ships of the exploration fleet were just fun things in the eyes of this dragon? Right, young Miss Cassandra, since you've been in contact with the fleet, you should have seen the halfling in the fleet, right? You're talking about that little halfling girl? Cassandra asked back. Little girl. Suyi's lips twitched. Rumi was already several hundred years old, but she was still a little girl in Cassandra's heart. But thinking about it, it was said that dragons could live for over 10,000 years. Although this Cassandra called her a girl, she might be over 1,000 years old, so it wasn't strange for her to call Rumi a little girl. And it's her. Actually, our company organized this exploration fleet because she was certain that the halflings had left signs several thousand years ago, heading to another continent. Now that the fleet has even met your dragon race, does that mean that the legend of the halflings migrating to another continent is true? I don't know what your legend is, but the halflings are all over the Demon Cloud continent. As for whether they came from a Signs continent or not, I don't know. Demon Cloud continent. Instructor Carmilla's expression suddenly changed as she said, Honorable Dragon Race Young Miss, this Demon Cloud continent. Did you translate it from our continent's common language, or was it originally pronounced like this? Is there a difference? Of course. Instructor Carmilla said with a nod with a serious look. Of course it's originally pronounced like this. I learned the continent's common language from the humans on your fleet, and this demon cloud continent isn't in the vocabulary they taught me, so I changed it to the way we dragons call it. So it's like this. Thank you for your answer. Instructor Carmilla nodded, then frowned and fell into contemplation. Sui looked at Instructor Carmilla strangely, not understanding why she cared so much about the name Demon Cloud Continent. Just as he was about to ask Cassandra a few more questions, the magic power around him fluctuated and great magician Runa's figure appeared again, holding a magic projector in his hand. All right, this is for you. Take a look at it yourself. The small square box that had been floating in front of Cassandra floated in front of Sui. Sui grabbed it and opened the box. Inside was an illusion projection module, and he immediately understood. I'm afraid it's not convenient to look at it here. Miss Cassandra, are you willing to? Sui looked up at Cassandra. He originally wanted to invite her back to the Chamber of Commerce to slowly discuss it, but seeing her huge body, he felt a bit awkward. My task is complete. You don't need to worry about me. Cassandra flapped her wings as if she wanted to take off and leave. Sui quickly flew up to stop her. Miss Cassandra, please stay a little longer. We still have a lot to ask you about the fleet. In addition, we should be sending reinforcements later. I hope you can bring the reinforcements to join the fleet we sent out before. Cassandra looked at Sui, then turned her head to look at the signs behind Sui. After a moment of silence, she asked, You just said that you were the president of New Flyer, right? Yes. Then let me ask you, have the later episodes of Pollock Dynasty Grudges come out? Sui, Instructor Carmilla, and the others were dumbfounded. No one would have thought that the dragon would ask such a question the moment it opened its mouth. What? You don't know about Pollock Dynasty Grudges? The humans in your fleet clearly said that this thing is very popular in your human world. You should know about it, right? Of course I know. Sui didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he nodded. Then tell me, have the later episodes come out? Sui calmed himself down and thought about it before understanding what was going on. The Voyage Exploration Fleet's journey would be very long, so in order to pass the boredom of the journey, they had prepared several magic illusion projectors before they set off. Moreover, they had brought all the magic illusion films that the New Moon Chamber of Commerce had released, treating them as entertainment for the lonely journey. Then when the fleet met this dragon, it was unknown how she came into contact with this thing and was very interested in Pollock Dynasty Grudges. I remember that when the fleet set off, Pollock Dynasty Grudges had just started airing. Sui had a strange expression. He felt that it was very strange that a dragon would be interested in a series about the rise and fall of human dynasties. It has already finished airing. If you're interested, I can bring you all the later episodes. Really? That's great. Cassandra's tone was filled with undisguised excitement. After she flapped her wings a few times, she said, All right, find me a place where I won't be disturbed, then give me a magic illusion projector and all the later episodes of Pollock Dynasty Grudges. If you have any questions, you can ask me yourself. At this time, she seemed to have forgotten that she was going back. Sui was speechless as he nodded. While he was thinking about what to do, Mentor Carmilla flew over. I'll take care of her. You take care of the fleet. Sui looked at Mentor Carmilla. Seeing her serious expression, he felt even more strange. However, he knew Mentor Carmilla's personality, so he naturally wouldn't ask. He nodded and took the magic illusion projector and the magic illusion projector. His figure flashed, and when he reappeared, he was already in his private manor at the edge of the cliff. After entering the private study in the manor, Sui stuffed the magic illusion projector into the magic illusion projector, and an illusion was immediately projected. When the illusion appeared, it was Commander Noir who was in charge of the exploration fleet. In the illusion, Noir's expression was a little excited, but more than that, he was nervous. President, I'm Noir. I'm reporting to you from an island about 10,000 kilometers away from Signs. Then, the illusion changed to an aerial view. It showed that the island was very large, but there was very little vegetation on the island. Sui even saw a huge volcanic crater, proving that the island wasn't a comfortable place to live. We've seen countless islands like this on our journey. It wasn't rare at first, but on this island, we've met the legendary dragons. Chapter 1029. He was surprised. If he had heard this before seeing Cassandra, he definitely would have been very surprised. But he had just talked to Cassandra for a while, so naturally he wasn't excited about this news. This fellow Noir. He clearly knew that this illusion projection module was brought over by that dragon Cassandra. He muttered before continuing to watch. Through Noir's description in the illusion, he had a general understanding of the situation. The exploration fleet led by Noir had arrived on this island where the dragons lived around 4 months ago. Before this, they had been heading west on the endless seas. Although they had explored countless islands and even met some humans on a few islands, there wasn't anything worth paying attention to. When they arrived at the island and discovered the legendary dragon clan on the island, everyone was shocked at that time. But to their surprise, the ferocious-looking dragons were not as ferocious as the legends said. Instead, they showed great interest in them and began to communicate with them in a friendly manner. After a month of communication, the fleet learned many things that they didn't know before with the help of the dragons. For example, there were several continents in this world. For example, the closest one to this island was the Demon Cloud continent. For example, there were halflings all over the Demon Cloud continent. For example, after obtaining this basic information, Noir was certain that the fleet would be heading to the Demon Cloud continent to explore. But he felt that the information he had obtained was very valuable, so he needed to report it to Sir Chairman first. When Noir was considering how to send people back to report, there was actually a dragon that they knew who volunteered to do this for them. The vitality of the dragons was very strong. It wasn't a problem for them to fly at full speed for a month. They were even faster than the magic airships, so if it was a dragon doing this, it would save a large amount of time. Sir Chairman, considering the existence of the illusion projection module, I feel that this method of reporting to you should be acceptable. Also, if a dragon personally came to deliver the letter, it would be more convincing, so I agreed to her suggestion. When you saw this illusion, I believe that you should have seen Cassandra and talked to her. He could not help but roll his eyes. There was no problem for Noir to be the commander of the fleet, but his habit of spouting nonsense every time he made a report had not changed at all. When he returned, he would have to train him properly. However, he felt that something was strange. According to what Noir said in this vision, Cassandra should have left about 3 months ago. But with the speed of the dragons that surpassed the magic airship, 10,000 kilometers wasn't considered that far. Why was Cassandra so slow? According to the description of the dragons, the closest landing point from the Demon Cloud continent to this island is less than 1,000 kilometers away. So, I decided that before exploring the unknown Demon Cloud continent, it is best to set up a base nearby as a station, so that we can have a place to evacuate if the exploration is unfavorable. Hearing Noir's words, he nodded in approval. Noir's considerations could be considered very serious, but for their fleet that was over 10,000 kilometers away from the New Flight Commerce main base, it couldn't be too serious. There was no doubt that his actions were correct. According to Noir's plan, the Voyage Exploration Fleet will first send a small number of ships and a small number of people to the Demon Cloud continent for preliminary exploration. The rest of the people and the fleet will find a large island with a good living environment near the island where the dragons live and start to build a base. When Cassandra said that the fleet needed help, it was actually Noir's request for manpower and materials. Sir Chairman, with the good relationship we have with the dragons, as long as we build a base on this island, we will have a firm foothold outside the Demon Cloud continent. It will be a good foundation for our company to enter the Demon Cloud continent in the future. This subordinate thinks that we should continue investing in this place. At the same time, we have found that the dragons need some special products. Hashtag, Sir Chairman. This is a good opportunity. Kennard slapped the table and looked at Sue with sparkling eyes, as his eyes were filled with excitement. This is a brand new continent. It means a new and huge market. If our company can fully control this market, it means that our company will have unimaginable space for development. Don't get excited. He raised his hand and gestured to Kennard to calm down first. There are two problems now. First, the authenticity of this illusion is still uncertain. Kennard was startled. Sir Chairman, du suspect noir. I can't be sure whether this illusion is real or not. He glanced at him. You should know that the principle of illusion is to use an illusion array to create it. This means that there is the possibility of directly creating false illusions. But noir in this illusion is very real. I don't think that a direct forgery can reach this level. Kennard said, yes. So there's another possibility that noir himself has been tampered with. Of course, this is only my conjecture. The reason is that noir didn't send a single subordinate back this time, and only sent Cassandra back to report. This doesn't make sense. Kennard thought for a while before lightly nodding. This doesn't make sense. Noir shouldn't have thought of this. The second question is, even if this illusion is real, to what extent should we provide support? This, Kennard thought for a long time this time. After thinking for a while with his head lowered, he replied with certainty, to the best of our ability, Sir Chairman, for a company, a new market is the hardest to come by. The reason why our company has developed so quickly in the past few years is because the magic machine industry in signs is completely empty. So we have the advantage and have developed quickly. But with the other countries on the continent paying more attention to the magic machine industry, our company can no longer monopolize the market like before. So from now on, finding a new market is the most important thing for us to consider. And now, if the news brought back by this dragon is true, it means that she has brought us a huge new market. If we don't use it well, it would be suicide. Seeing the excited Kennard, he revealed a faint smile. He thought that Kennard was a true merchant, but the angle he considered was slightly different from his. But Kennard, since we know about this news, it is impossible to hide it from others. Sooner or later, other countries will know that there are several continents outside of signs. Do you think that they can't think of this problem? So what if they can think of it? Kennard gave a soft snort, as his voice was filled with confidence. Right now, only our new flyer has the magic boats that can sail the seas. Even if they know that there are other continents outside of signs, without the support of the magic boats, they can't go there at all. Have you forgotten that our new flyer's main body is still in signs? It is impossible to completely abandon them. He shook his head with a smile. Of course, I agree with you. A new continent means a new market. No matter what angle we consider it from, we have to grasp this chance. He thought for a bit before taking a piece of paper. He drew a circle on it and marked the signs before drawing a long line to the left. He put a dot on it and wrote noir. Then he drew another circle to the left and marked the demon cloud continent. Now we have to confirm the authenticity of this information. He tapped on the dot with noir. Then we'll decide how to operate this outpost according to the situation. At the same time, he tapped on the line again before knitting his brows. The biggest problem right now is communication. Whether it is that island or the demon cloud continent, they are too far away, so it will take a long time to send any information. It will take at least a month to go back and forth. That long time is enough for many things to change. Kennard looked at the small dots that he had tapped on the line and said with a frown, Sir Chairman, you wouldn't be thinking of building magic signal towers one by one, right? This investment is too terrifying. Even our new flyer can't take it. Moreover, the environment of the endless seas won't allow it. So this is a big problem right now. He tapped on the paper a few more times before giving up on this problem. Forget it. We can only think of a way to solve the communication problem later. Right now, we should consider how to confirm the authenticity of this information. Kennard, I want you to immediately make a detailed plan. Once we decide to send reinforcements, I need you to organize a fleet with enough power as soon as possible. No problem, Kennard replied without any hesitation. Then his expression changed as he asked, That's right, Sir Chairman. That dragon said that there are several continents other than the Demon Cloud continent. Shouldn't we explore those other continents? Don't think of becoming a fatty in one bite. He reprimanded. The most important thing is that our company's current strength isn't enough to support all these exploration lines at the same time. Kennard blinked and could only give a sigh. Chapter 10:30. When Sui walked out of the New Flyer office building, it was already dark outside. Not many lights could be seen. When he looked up, he found that the sky was full of stars, but there was no moonlight. Looking at the stars in the night sky that were much brighter and denser than the stars on Earth, Sui confirmed once again that the planet under his feet was not Earth from a different plane, but another planet in the vast universe. Sui raised his hand and looked at the planets in the sky that seemed to be close to his hand, but were actually at least dozens of light years away. He sighed softly. The reason why he wanted to build a complete industrial system here after coming to this world was not only to satisfy his hobby, but also because he hoped that one day he could break through the atmosphere and go straight into the sea of stars. Although he didn't feel anything when he transmigrated and could be considered muddle-headed, since he was able to transmigrate with his entire body intact, it proved that he had the same method of transmigrating back. Sui didn't know how to transmigrate, so he could only pin his hopes on going into space and traveling through the universe to find a possible Earth. However, Sui was also very clear in his heart that the possibility of success was infinitely close to zero. Even if he could successfully build a complete magic industrial system in this world, it would take a long time to build a spaceship that could enter the sky. And even with the level of technology on Earth, it was still impossible to achieve arbitrary space travel. Wanting this backward world to achieve this dream was tantamount to a fool's dream. Of course, with enough time, this world might really be able to develop such advanced technology. But by that time, Sui would have been dead for who knows how many years. So in the end, this was just a simple dream. It was completely impossible to realize it. Sui was a very rational person. He thought about this matter very clearly. So when he thought about this point again, it didn't make him feel too sad, just a little helpless. It had been 15 years since he left Earth, and the memories of his family and friends on Earth had faded to the point where he could barely remember them. In his mind, Steele's current family members were the most important. What he needed to do was to accompany them well, and, at the same time, do his part for his dream. Even if he couldn't fulfill his dream of traveling through space, it wouldn't be a bad idea to leave it to his descendants. But before that, it's better to explore the world under my feet. Sui laughed at himself, thinking that he really wanted to fly before he even learned how to run. Sui turned around to look at the brightly lit window above the sunken office building. He thought that Kennard was probably more anxious than him right now. He couldn't wait to bring the other continents under the New Flyer's control. However, this matter could not be rushed. Sui and Kennard had just discussed for more than 2 hours, and they had only preliminarily determined the scale of the reinforcement fleet and the main candidates to be sent. There were many specific decisions that required more detailed understanding before they could be made. Thinking of this, Sui took out a magic communicator from his pocket. "Hey, Sui, you haven't slept yet?" As soon as the magic communicator was connected, Mentor Carmilla's slightly tired voice came from it. "Grandpa, you haven't slept either." Sui smiled. "How is Miss Cassandra now?" "She's doing very well, but I'm not doing so well." Sui was slightly shocked. "What's wrong?" There was a moment of silence on the other side of the magic communicator. Then Mentor Carmilla asked, "Kid, where are you now?" "I just came out of the main building." "What's up?" "Come to the old place in the north. I have something to tell you." Mentor Carmilla hung up after saying that. Sui glanced at the magic communicator in shock. He wondered what was wrong with Mentor Carmilla today. She had been acting strange ever since she saw Cassandra. Is it because she was too shocked to see the legendary Dragon Queen? Sui cast a flying spell on himself in puzzlement. While thinking, he quickly flew to the north of the main base. About 20 minutes later, Sui flew out of the range of the New Flight Commerce main base. Soon, he sensed the magic waves deliberately released by Mentor Carmilla. "Grandpa, what are you doing here?" Sui landed on a mountain and asked Mentor Carmilla, who was staring ahead and thinking about something. "Look, that dragon is still watching Love and Hate in the Pollock dynasty." Mentor Carmilla pointed to the front left. Sui looked in the direction she pointed and saw a cluster of light flashing in a valley there. It was the flickering light of the illusions projected by the magic illusion projector. Under the illumination of the light, it could be clearly seen that a dragon was lying in the center of the valley, staring at the illusions attentively. Sui was a little speechless. A dragon was so obsessed with watching TV series. It was really strange no matter how he looked at it. I've already been watching it for several hours, and it has been staring at the illusion the entire time. Other than eating a meal, it hasn't moved at all. Archmagus Camilla continued. This kind of behavior really makes me wonder if it's really the legendary dragon clan. Sui shook his head with a bitter smile. It's not just you. I'm also a little doubtful. The legendary dragons are all extremely vicious. Why is Cassandra's temperament so gentle? She even likes to watch the TV series made by us humans. You are wrong. The dragon clan isn't completely evil. Mentor Carmilla shook her head. According to my research on the dragons, this dragon should be from the red dragon family, which has the largest number of dragons. It has always been known for its gentle nature. Noir and the others were lucky to have met a red dragon. If they had met the most violent black dragon, the result might have been completely different. Oh, the dragons are divided into red dragons and black dragons? It's not just these two types. There are many other types, but the records are not complete, so I don't know very well. Then you didn't ask Cassandra clearly just now. Sui asked. I have more important things to ask her, so I didn't ask these questions. Mentor Carmilla shook her head. More important things? Sui looked at the serious expression on Mentor Carmilla's face, and his heart skipped a beat. Grandpa, you seem to know something? Mentor Carmilla turned to look at Sui, and her expression became very serious. Sui, do you know what race ruled this continent before the elves? Sui was stunned. I don't know. According to all the signs historical records that Sui had flipped through, it only said that the elves had ruled this continent before the humans, but it never said who the elves were before. It's the legendary Abyss demons, Mentor Carmilla said in a deep voice. According to the legends, the Abyss demons were a powerful race whose individual strength was comparable to the dragons. They also had a reproductive ability that was only inferior to the elves. So before the elves, the Abyss demons completely ruled this continent, and even the entire world. Then, nearly 10,000 years ago, for some reason, the Abyss demons suddenly disappeared from this continent, and the elves ruled this continent. Oh, and then, Sui blinked, a little confused. Even if the Abyss demons were really as terrifying as the legends said, nearly 10,000 years had already passed. What did it have to do with the present? According to the legends, the Abyss demons did not completely disappear. They just retreated to another plane. They will wait for 10,000 years before reappearing in this world and ruling all the continents again. At that time, it will be the end of all races. According to the legends, this day will be the end of the world. Sui grinned and almost laughed out loud, although Mentor Carmilla's expression was unusually serious when he said this, and his tone was unusually heavy. No matter how Sui looked at it, he felt that he was an old swindler. Perhaps sensing Sui's thoughts, Mentor Carmilla glared at Sui. Kid, don't doubt it. This legend is not only among us humans, but also widely spread among the elves. If you don't believe me, you can ask Elder Lucia and the others. I didn't believe in the legends of the dragons before, but in the end, now, a living dragon has appeared in front of me. Sui quickly straightened his face and nodded. And I will ask, but Grandpa, you said that the Abyss demons will appear in this world again. How they appear? Did they cross over from another plane? That's something no one knows. There are very few records about the Abyss demons. I only came into contact with some by chance, so I don't know much more than you. But I think the elves have more records about this. Tomorrow, I will ask Elder Lysania about it. Sui gave a shrug and didn't comment. As a mechanical engineer from Earth, Sui had always been skeptical about this so-called legend that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. The passage of several hundred years was enough to distort the facts of everything that had happened. let alone the passage of nearly 10,000 years. Since the so-called abyssal demons had been driven out of this continent and even out of this world 10,000 years ago, the other races on this continent, especially the human race, had already developed to become extremely powerful after nearly 10,000 years. Even if the abyss demons appeared again, what threat could they pose? Seeing Su Yi's disapproving appearance, Mentor Carmilla knew his character and was too lazy to say more to him. Okay, anyway, I just want to mention this to you. Whether you believe it or not, it's best to be prepared. After that, Mentor Carmilla pointed to Cassandra in the valley in the distance. I know you must be careful. You must have something to say to it. Remember, although the red dragon has a gentle temperament, it is still a dragon. Be careful. I understand. Su nodded, seeing Mentor Carmilla's figure disappear. Su rubbed his face and flew to Cassandra, who was still staring at the illusion intently. Chapter 1031. Hey, Cassandra, is it good? Su waved his hand at Cassandra, who was watching the Pollock Dynasty illusion. I heard you watched it all day today. Cassandra didn't even look at Su. She just nodded and didn't say anything else. Seeing her like this, Su thought for a bit before sitting next to her and watching it with her. Strictly speaking, Su could actually be regarded as one of the screenwriters of this Pollock Dynasty. When Steele was planning to shoot this illusion film, she asked for a lot of advice from Su. Su also made a lot of changes to the story that Steele came up with based on the characteristics of the TV series on Earth, making it more attractive. But Su had never really watched an episode before. Today could be considered his first time watching it. The reason was very simple. Of course, he didn't have time. Now that he sat down and watched it for a while, he found that this Pollock Dynasty was really good. Although the pace of the plot was still lacking compared to some excellent TV series on Earth. Because of the use of illusion photography and recording technology, the illusion broadcast now had a 3D effect. Moreover, it was extremely realistic, making people feel as if they could personally integrate into the picture. In addition, after years of cooperation between the New Moon Chamber of Commerce and the Azhara tribe, the elven mages who were proficient in illusion magic now had the ability to add various special effects to the illusion. Coupled with the extremely realistic illusion that made people feel like they were in the illusion, these special effects looked even more gorgeous and eye-catching. Moreover, when shooting Pollock Dynasty, the New Moon Chamber of Commerce directly negotiated with the Lampari Kingdom and the Kingdom of Ruhr to mobilize the regular armies of the two kingdoms to cooperate and shoot the war scenes in a grand and spectacular manner. Fully armed, organized regular armies charged in uniform and then fought together. This scene was far from being comparable to the TV series on Earth that could only barely be reflected with a small number of extras and a large number of special effects. Simply put, although this Pollock's Revenge was similar to a TV series, in terms of graphics alone, it had definitely reached the level of the top movies on Earth. Seeing the giant army charging forward in the illusion, even Su, who wasn't interested in these things, couldn't help feeling his blood boil. But now that I thought about it, the fighting style and signs had changed. The legendary fighting style that mainly relied on melee combat had long been eliminated by the new fighting style, led by New Flyer, which used large amounts of military magic machines. Now, such fighting scenes could only be seen in fantasy movies. And the culprit who caused this change was precisely Su himself. So this is basically a historical war drama. Su, who was watching with nostalgia and pure appreciation, was silent. Cassandra, who was next to him, was also paying full attention. So the man and the dragon actually watched the episode until the end, and they only recovered from their shock when the ending song played. Cassandra's eyes, which had been motionless all this time, moved as if she had just discovered that there was an extra person beside her. She tilted her head and looked down at Su with a surprised tone. Hey, human, when did you get here? Su looked at her speechlessly. Cassandra, is your vigilance so low? If I suddenly attacked you just now, wouldn't you be in trouble? Cassandra flapped her wings, and there was undisguised contempt in her eyes. Human, I can see that you are a mage. But don't think that being a mage is a threat to me. Let me tell you, even if I stand here without moving, I can rely on my body to resist spells above level 7. As for spells above level 7, do you think I won't notice when you launch the spell? Then what if I prepare a forbidden spell in advance? Sui asked curiously. How are you going to resist it? Forbidden spell? That's a bit troublesome, but it's not enough to really hurt me. Besides, I see that you're still young, so you can't master a forbidden spell, right? Still young. Sui wiped his face, thinking that his daughter was already in her teens. How could she be considered young? But thinking about the possible age of the dragon in front of him, he could only be speechless. Well, let's not waste time on this issue. Sui shook his head. Cassandra, I have a few questions to ask you, and I hope you can tell me the answer. Cassandra reluctantly glanced at the magic illusion projector, which had stopped playing the illusion, and let out a sigh. Sigh, you humans are really troublesome. Well, if you have any questions, ask quickly. Don't delay my time to continue watching the Pollock Dynasty. It seems like you really like this movie. Sui turned to look at the magic illusion projector, thought for a bit, and continued. How about this, Cassandra? Before you leave, I'll give you a magic illusion projector as well as a set of magic illusion modules for all the illusion films produced by the New Moon Chamber of Commerce. Then you can watch them whenever you want after returning home. What do you think? Oh, human, you're actually this generous? Cassandra's voice revealed a pleasant surprise that couldn't be hidden. This isn't a big deal. Sui shrugged. Also, I'm called Sui. If you only call me a human, there's no way to distinguish me from other humans. You humans all look the same in my eyes. Cassandra muttered in a low voice before suddenly leaning down. The giant dragon head was right in front of Sui, only half a meter away from him. Seeing the two large eyes staring right at him and feeling the large amounts of hot air coming out of the two nostrils that were very close to him, Sui felt his scalp turn numb. It wasn't that he was afraid, but this situation was just too strange. Cassandra looked at Sui for a while before taking back the giant dragon head. All right, human. Oh no, you're called. Sui. Sui. I remember that you're the president of the New Flyer, right? I've already remembered your aura and won't mistake you for another human. Then I really have to thank you. Sui weakly thanked her. Right, the magic illusion module for the illusion films I gave you are all special collections of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce. In addition to the original film, there are also a lot of highlights. It will be much more interesting than just watching the original film. Really? You humans are really creative in this regard. Cassandra's tone was full of surprise. It seemed that she was very satisfied with this gift. Perhaps because she was very satisfied with this gift, Cassandra simply lay down and lowered her head again, so that Sui wouldn't have to look up to talk to her. Very good. Human. Sui, if you have any questions, just ask. For the sake of the gift, I will answer you well. Sui smiled faintly, thinking that the dragons were not much different from other intelligent creatures. He could also use appropriate flattery to get close to them. After deliberating for a while, Sui asked, First question, do you know about the Abyss Demon race? In the view of Teacher Carmilla, the Abyss Demon race might be a very mysterious and terrifying creature. She even regarded it as an ancient legend with a cursed nature, so she was particularly cautious when talking about it. But in Sui's view, any so-called legend would immediately become less mysterious and terrifying as long as the truth was clear. If he wanted to know the truth about the Abyss Demon race, of course, it was the easiest and most direct way to inquire about it from the dragons who probably had the most understanding of the history of this world. Abyss Demon race? Cassandra seemed a little stunned. Why did you suddenly ask about these damn guys? Damn guys? Sui immediately noticed a hint of information in Cassandra's words. Well, these guys could be said to have ruled the whole world a long time ago. Only a few particularly powerful races, including our dragon race, were not under their control. So these guys have always wanted to conquer our dragon race and have fought many wars with us. Have you participated in these wars? Or have you seen the Abyss Demon race with your own eyes? Sui immediately asked, How could I have seen it? I am less than 2,000 years old this year, and the last appearance of the Abyss demon race was more than 9,000 years ago. I only heard about it from the elders in the clan. Less than 2,000 years old. He was secretly speechless. Cassandra's age was even several times that of Elder Alicia and the others. As for humans, they were simply not qualified to be compared with her. However, she was only a junior in the dragon race, which showed the incomparable vitality of the dragon race. Then do you know a legend about the Abyss demon race? It is said that when the Abyss demon race left this world, they claimed that they would return and reoccupy the whole world after 10,000 years. TSK with just them? Cassandra let out a disdainful sneer. These guys were driven out of this world by the elves a long time ago. It can be seen that they were no match for the elves at all. Later, the elves were replaced by you humans. It can be seen that you humans are stronger than the elves. So what if these guys really come back? Could it be that after hiding for thousands of years, their combat power has become many times stronger? He was slightly startled. From Minter Carmilla's extremely solemn and cautious expression, he thought that the Abyss demon race was a terrifying existence. However, with Cassandra's reminder, he found that these fellows had been chased away by the elves a long time ago, and the elves weren't a match for the humans. Based on this relationship, even if the Abyss demons stayed on the Signs continent, they were far from being able to compare to the humans. Of course, this inference was too straightforward. The real relationship between strength and weakness was not so simple. But no matter what, through Cassandra's answer, Su Yi's nervous mood because of what Camilla had said before his death instantly calmed down. Chapter 1032. After confirming that the Abyss demon race wasn't like what was described in some fantasy novels, where they would descend like a great demon king and bring the end of the world, Su Yi's expression relaxed. Hey, Cassandra, do you know how many dragons are left? Su Yi asked another question he was concerned about. Cassandra let out a breath, like she wasn't interested in this question at all. You humans always like to ask this kind of question. To tell you the truth, I don't know. You don't know? Of course. Why do I need to know the answer to this kind of boring question? Cassandra asked back. Is there any meaning to this? Of course there is. Knowing how many clansmen you have, wouldn't it strengthen your sense of identity with your race? He was a bit confused. So, this is a question only you humans would consider because you humans are a race that likes to stick together. As for us dragons, we are a race that is born with strong individuals. We don't need to stick together to live well. So why do we need to consider how many clansmen we have? He suddenly felt that Cassandra's words were very reasonable, and he couldn't refute it for a while. Indeed, dragons were born with strong individuals and strong vitality. Even if they left their group to live alone, they would still be able to live well. They weren't like humans who lived in groups. But according to the information you brought back, you shouldn't be the only one on the island our fleet arrived at, right? Sui asked. This isn't strange, because the environment on that island was very suitable for us red dragons to live in, and it was big enough. Many clansmen were too lazy to find a new place to live after finding this island and settled down there. Cassandra looked down at Sui. If it wasn't for your company's fleet strangely coming over, I wouldn't have left that island even after several thousand years. Sui looked back at the magic projector and thought that this dragon kept saying that she was lazy, but she flew close to 10,000 kilometers to this far place. Could it be that she was interested in the magic illusion film? Cassandra, other than you, are there any other dragons interested in this thing? Sui pointed at the magic projector and asked. Of course. To be precise, all of our people like this new toy that your fleet brought. I just like it a little more than they do. That's why I asked for this mission from your fleet, because I can't wait to see the sequel of the Pollock Dynasty, Love and Hate. I never thought that other than the Pollock Dynasty, there would be many other good illusions, so I'm very happy. Hearing Cassandra's answer, Sui didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In the Legends of the Signs, the impression left by the dragons was that they were powerful, fierce, and impossible to communicate with normally. However, this Cassandra who suddenly appeared didn't look fierce at all and was very easy to communicate with. She was even like a normal human girl and was very interested in the Pollock dynasty, which was more like an idol drama, to Sue-E. This was really unexpected. Moreover, Cassandra said that other than her, almost all the dragons were interested in this thing, which was even more surprising. No matter how good the Pollock dynasty was, it was still a story about humans. Why were these dragons so interested in it? Could it be that these fellows have lived for too long, so they're too bored? Sue-Yi's heart skipped a beat as he asked, Cassandra, I'm very curious. What do you dragons usually do? Do you have any special activities? Special activities? Cassandra raised her head slightly and seemed to think seriously for a moment, then shook her big head and replied, Nothing special. Other than foraging, I sleep most of the time. Sure enough, Sue-Yi nodded, confirming his guess. From the looks of it, the dragons were so bored that they found it interesting after watching the magical illusion film. That was why they were deeply attracted to it. This difference was the biggest difference between humans and dragons, and even almost all other races. Among the known intelligent races, humans were undoubtedly the ones with the most abundant entertainment. Among other races, including the elves who had ruled this continent for thousands of years and had a highly developed society, they were far inferior in terms of entertainment because of their personality. Before Sue-Yi came to this continent, even the entertainment activities of human society were actually extremely monotonous compared to Earth. So the magic illusion film that Sue-Yi copied from Earth was very popular among humans and was also welcomed by the other races. Now, even the dragons were showing great interest in this form of entertainment. It could be seen that any intelligent race actually had entertainment requirements. It was just that they were limited by various factors before and didn't show it. Thinking of this, Sue-Yi looked up at Cassandra and a bold idea came to his mind. Hashtag, 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 the hot summer finally left reluctantly. When a slightly cool breeze blew, it meant that another year's autumn had arrived. Every year at this time, it was the time when the Xinfei Magic Racing Championship, sponsored by New Flyer, was held in Xinfei. This year's Xinfei Championship was slightly delayed by 2 days compared to the previous 2 years. However, this didn't affect the people who paid attention to this competition. When it came to the day of the Xinfei Championship, the competition venue outside Xinfei City was filled with people. Even the people who couldn't go in to watch the competition were all sitting outside the venue. They were all focused on the magic illusion outside the venue, not blinking at all. After being held for so many years, the Xinfei Magic Racing Championship had become the most eye-catching competition in the southwest corner of the continent. What people cared about wasn't just the competition itself, but also the various bets and guesses related to the competition. According to the incomplete statistics of some newspapers, before and after each Xinfei Racing Championship, the minimum amount of money involved in the bets will be over 5 million gold coins. It was even enough to match the annual income of a small country. As for the competition itself, just the Frestex Station competition alone had earned 1,400,000 gold coins from the tickets. Because the price of a single ticket was 100 gold coins, and it could even be sold at a higher price by scalpers, for many people, being able to watch a competition was already a symbol of status. Of all the seats in the venue, the best seats were also the most expensive. There is no doubt the seats closest to the rostrum, with the lowest price being 500 gold coins per seat. As for the rostrum, the only ones who could sit there and watch the competition were the truly important people invited by New Flyer. Not to mention normal citizens. Even normal nobles and merchants didn't have a chance to sit there. So normally speaking, there were quite a few seats left on the rostrum, but it was rarely full. There wasn't even a chance to fill half of the seats. However, when the competition officially began today, the rostrum was almost filled with people. There was also a group of fully armed New Flyer guards surrounding it, making it very heavily guarded. It could be seen that there was definitely a truly important person who came to watch the competition today. When people saw New Flyer's chairman Sue-Yi appear on the rostrum, they were even more certain of their guesses. Chairman Sue rarely came to watch the competition. He was always with an important guest. With Chairman Sue's current status, if he needed to personally accompany someone, it had to be a truly important guest, an important person that normal people couldn't touch. But no matter how hard the people looked, they could only see that the person walking beside Sue-E was a young girl who was rather petite compared to Sue-E, but they couldn't see her face at all. This made everyone very confused. It wasn't strange that they couldn't see the young girl's face because everyone knew that there were many special magic arrays around the rostrum. Chairman Sue was also a powerful great magician, so if he didn't want others to see the face of the important guest beside him, he had many methods. But the problem was, why did he place so much importance on this important guest that he couldn't even let others see her face? If others knew that as the ruler of a country, I personally came to watch a magic race car race, wouldn't they be very surprised? 70 looked around the rostrum and found that quite a few people were looking over with curious gazes, so she couldn't help giving a self-deprecating laugh. Sue-E on the side gave a shrug. Actually, I feel that you're thinking too much. Even if you openly told everyone that you came to watch the race, I don't think anyone would say anything. 70 gave a soft sigh. Who told all the newspapers in the country to be watching my every move, so they will report everything I do? You know, Sue, and not everyone in the Lampari Kingdom supports me. Then let them talk. What is there to worry about? Sue-E still had a look of disapproval. If it's just a normal daily life report, it will increase your exposure and increase your popularity in the Lampari Kingdom, which is a good thing. If they go too far, it's even easier to just get rid of them. It's a pity that it's not as easy as you think. 70 gave a tired sigh before revealing a smile. All right, we're here to watch the race today. Let's not talk about these unhappy things. Tell me, which car is Cassandra in? Chapter 10:33. Here, counting from the right, the one in the third car is her. Sue-E pointed at the 12 magic race cars that were already lined up at the starting line with a strange look on his face. Cassandra had been here for close to a month. During this time, Sue-E had been in contact with her and confirmed that Cassandra was a dragon who loved human entertainment. So he had presented all the entertainment he knew to Cassandra and let her choose. However, Cassandra had recognized the illusion film as a form of entertainment in the past half a month. She would stay in the valley all day long, staring at the various illusion films being played by the magic illusion projector, watching them without blinking. Until half a month ago, after she finished watching the illusion film produced by the New Moon Chamber of Commerce last year, she had the idea of leaving the valley for the first time and moving around. Then she tried all the entertainment that Sue-E had prepared for her. After trying out, Cassandra surprised Sue-E by showing great interest in driving the magic race cars. This little girl is the legendary dragon. 70 looked at the race car that Sue-E had pointed out with her binoculars for a while before looking up at the magic illusion in the center of the field. She looked at Cassandra's face for a while before slightly knitting her brows. She's clearly a human girl. How does she look like a dragon? This is her. She's just in human form right now. Seeing 70's doubtful gaze, Sue-E gave a shrug and explained, "This is the innate skill of the dragon race. They can change into any form. Of course, it can't be for too long. But shouldn't dragons be very big? How did she become this small? She can even squeeze herself into the car?" 70 was still very doubtful. "Don't ask me, I don't know. All right, let's not talk about this for now. But does she have a driver's license? Does she know how to drive a magic race car? How could you let her participate in such a high-level racing competition? Do you remember how instructor Carmilla learned how to drive the magic sedan?" Sue-E asked back. 70's expression changed as a trace of fear appeared in her eyes. Minor Carmilla is using brute force. It's impossible for ordinary people to learn it. That's right. However, Cassandra is obviously not an ordinary person. Sue-E shrugged helplessly. Her body is very strong, and her life force is very strong. Even if the magic sedan she was driving exploded, nothing would happen to her at all. That's how she learned it. 70 looked at Sue-E and her lips twitched. It was like she wanted to laugh, but she was too embarrassed to laugh. "Sue-E, it must have been hard on you to have so many monsters around you." Sue-E gave a sigh. Compared to her, at least Instructor Carmilla was a human, so she knew a lot of common sense. But Cassandra was a dragon, so common sense didn't mean anything to her. So he had suffered quite a bit because of Cassandra. But the dragon race really was the most intelligent race in the legends. Cassandra's learning ability was shocking, and in less than a month, she had already learned many things that she was interested in. Driving a magic sedan was one of them. If she walked into a human city as a human girl, she would be able to blend in perfectly without being exposed. So she felt that it was boring for a person. Oh, no. It was boring for a dragon to drive a magic sedan. So she came to participate in this professional magic race car race. Why do I feel that this sounds so awkward? 70 slightly knit her brows with a strange look. I also feel that it's awkward, but I have to accept reality. Sue, he spread his hands and helplessly said this. That's right. She wants to see if she can compete with the best racers among us humans, to see how good her racing skills are. Then you agreed to her? 70 looked at Sue in surprise. She's a dragon, and you threw her into a group of people's tears. Don't you feel that it's very strange? It's fine as long as others don't know the truth. Sue gave a shrug. We announced to the public that she was a substitute racer for our company's team, and she was only participating in this race. But the human appearance she has is just a little girl in her teens. How can others believe that she is a professional racer? Anyway, we announced this to the public. I don't care if others believe it or not. 70 could only roll her eyes at this response. I say, Sue, are you certain that this dragon won't cause any problems? Moreover, are you certain that you can dig out enough value from her? She is a dragon in the end, and although I heard you say that she was very gentle after appearing, I'm still worried. Will she suddenly turn hostile? Relax. I've been chatting with her during this time, and found that she's quite easy to get along with. She's like a normal human girl most of the time. She's filled with curiosity towards the outside world and doesn't need to be vigilant. As for turning hostile, although I don't know how strong she is, she shouldn't be as strong as me, so there's no need to worry. Is that so? 70 suspiciously looked at the fire-red magic sedan in the distance that was about to set off before giving a nod. That's right. Although dragons are said to be very strong, she is still a young dragon, so she can't be stronger than a human 5-star great magician like you. Then Sue, are you certain that the information she brought back is true? I'm not 100% certain, but I feel that there shouldn't be a problem. Sue replied. Then what are you planning to do? Our reinforcement fleet is already prepared, and they will set off with Cassandra next week. And then, if nothing unexpected happens, the fleet should arrive at the island where the dragons are in a month and meet up with the exploration fleet from before. Based on the information they send back, I will make a decision based on the situation. But one thing is certain, as long as the Demon Cloud continent exists, we have to build a front-line base. 70 nodded and fell silent. Seeing 70 fall into thought, Sue smiled and didn't say anything else. As for the news of Cassandra suddenly appearing, Sue had tightly sealed it. Up to now, other than him and the other people in the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, only 70 knew about this matter. 70 was shocked when she learned of this news, but then she quickly grasped the more important information hidden in this news. 70 attached great importance to this information, so she personally came over from the Lampari Kingdom just to see Cassandra and decide what to do next. Sue revealed this information to 70 because he wanted the Lampari Kingdom and New Flyer to participate in the development of the unknown continent. 70 was the queen of the Lampari Kingdom, so it was impossible for her to not think of the benefits. So Sue wasn't worried that she wouldn't be willing. The only problem was how much determination 70 had. Sue didn't rush her and turned to look at the track. The warm-up before the race was over, and the audience that had been watching the rostrum were now focused on the track, waiting for the race to begin. On the giant screen in the center of the track, the 12 cars roared at the same time, indicating that they would charge out at any moment. On the other side of the screen, there was a giant number that kept changing. This was the countdown to the start of the race. 10, 9, 8. The audience loudly shouted as the countdown changed. 3, 2, 1. Honk! The 12 magic race cars roared as they charged off the starting line. The crowd also broke out in deafening cheers at the same time. For a while, the entire race was filled with a wild atmosphere. 70 trembled, as if she had been woken up by this loud sound. She stood up and looked at the 12 cars that were as fast as lightning. Her eyes were focused on the fire-red car with the Cassandra style. After thinking for a bit, she gave a slight nod to Sue E. Sue E., I'm very interested in investing in the development of the new continent, but I have a question. Our Lampari kingdom doesn't have a fleet that can sail across the seas, so how can we participate in this project? It's very simple. You can provide various materials and people to help build this base. I believe that the people of the new continent will have a large demand for our products, so they will definitely welcome magic machines. 70 slightly knit her brows, but I'm very interested in the Demon Cloud continent. Then it's very simple. You can build your own fleet and go with our company's fleet. Sue E said with a smile. Of course, you can't make it this time, but you can in the future. Build a fleet. 70's brows knit even deeper, and her voice was filled with resentment. You make it sound simple. Where will the ships come from? Where will the money come from? I can sell the ships to you, and the money can be recorded first. It will be deducted from your profits on the Demon Cloud continent. What do you think? 70 looked at Sue E in surprise. Doesn't that mean that I can sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor? It's not that simple. Although the opportunity to develop the new continent is big, the risks aren't small. If you want to seize this opportunity, you have to take the risks. 70 looked at the serious Sue E for a while before giving a soft sigh. Sue E, why are you so good to our Lampari kingdom? Sue E turned his head, and after a bit of silence, he said in a soft voice, I am a merchant. I'm just looking for a most trustworthy partner. 70's eyes dimmed, and a look of disappointment appeared on her face, but then she revealed a smile and reached her hand out to Sue E. Well, congratulations on finding an absolutely trustworthy partner. Sue E reached out to shake her hand. The two looked at each other and revealed a faint smile. However, there was an incomparably complicated meaning in their smiles. Chapter 1034. The 10th Shinfei Magic Racing Car Championship had officially ended in Shinfei City. The final result was as expected. The Shinfei Racing Car team had taken first place. But what was unexpected was that a team normally had two racers. With the strength of the Shinfei Racing Car, the fact that this was Shinfei City, the Shinfei Racing Car should have taken the first two places. But they only took one place this time. As for the other racer, he was pitifully placed last. This last place wasn't because of an accident that forced him to retire. Rather, it was because he finished the entire race. This result fell into the eyes of everyone who paid attention to this race, and they all felt it was a bit unbelievable. This was a racer from the Shinfei Racing Car that was specially developed by the New Flyer Racing Car, but he actually finished last? This was too ridiculous. Because of this unexpected result, in this Shinfei race, everyone who bet on the Shinfei Racing Car team lost all their money because no one would have thought that the Shinfei Racing Car team's racer would finish last. This was simply unbelievable. However, no matter how disappointed the others were, they couldn't compare to the racer who had this result. Oh no, this dragon. Sue, you didn't prepare the best race car for me, right? Cassandra angrily looked at Sue E, her eyes almost popping out. If it wasn't for the fact that she was still in human form, Sue E didn't doubt that she would spit out flames. How could that be? Sue E quickly raised his hand to show his innocence. The race car we prepared for the team was the best, and there were experts who tested it, so it was guaranteed to be in the best condition for the race. Then how could I be in last place? Cassandra was still angry. Sue E was in a daze. He couldn't just say that your driving skills were too bad, so it was natural for you to be in last place, right? It was a good thing that Cassandra was just venting because she was in last place. Actually, she knew that it was because her driving skills weren't good enough. She had already experienced it during the race. Sue E, other than those illusion films, give me another magic race car. Cassandra paused before continuing. Cassandra paused for a moment before continuing. Of course, I won't take your gift for nothing. I promise that I will do my best to help the people from your company. Oh, Sue Yi's eyes lit up as his heart filled with joy. It wasn't easy to obtain the promise of a dragon. If he could obtain Cassandra's promise with some illusion films and a magic racing car, it would be too worth it. All right, so he quickly agreed. After thinking about it, he deliberately knit his brows and said, "But there is a problem. Cassandra, you have been in contact with magic racing cars for a while, so you should know that magic racing cars can break. So it needs to be maintained and repaired when it breaks. So even if I give you a magic sedan, you won't be able to use it for long. Is that so?" Cassandra's two dark red eyebrows, which looked like two small swords, frowned slightly. "Then what do we do? There are two solutions. One is that if there is a problem with a magic racing car, you can bring it back here for us to maintain. That is too troublesome. I live over 10,000 kilometers away. It would take me 10 days to get there, even if I flew at full speed." Cassandra immediately shook her head to reject this plan. "Then we can only use the second plan. Our company will open a magic car maintenance workshop on your side, specialized in maintaining your magic racing car." "All right, it's this plan. But Cassandra, do you know how much investment it would take for us to cross over 10,000 roads to open a magic car maintenance workshop on your side?" He looked at Cassandra with a strange look. Cassandra curled her lips. "You humans really like to beat around the bush. I understand what you mean. Isn't it just money? How about this? After all these years, I've saved up some treasures that should be very precious to you humans. I could take out some to pay you. Is that all right?" I don't deny that you have the financial resources. But Cassandra, for our company, it isn't worth it to invest in a magic car maintenance workshop on your magic racing car," He said while shaking his head. Seeing that He was rejecting her, Cassandra couldn't help becoming angry. "I say, He, why are you humans so troublesome? I just wanted you to give me a magic race car, and you gave me a bunch of reasons in the end? Just say it if you don't want to give it to me. Do you think that we dragons are greedy people who like to take things from you humans?" No, I didn't mean that at all." He quickly waved his hand. "But compared to that, I have a better proposal. It can solve the problem of giving you a magic car, and it can also give our company more benefits." "Oh, what good method do you have?" "Cassandra, you like watching illusion films, right?" "Nonsense. Then do the other dragons of your dragon clan like watching it?" "I don't know about the other clansmen, but the clansmen of Fire Rock Island should like it." You also like driving the magic car, right?" Cassandra glared at He. "Nonsense, didn't you see it? Then do you think your clansmen will like it?" Cassandra looked at He in surprise before shaking her head. "I don't know. Why are you asking this?" "Since you don't know now, let's give it a try." He revealed a smile that was filled with enticement. "Cassandra, when you set off with our company's fleet in a few days, other than giving you a magic car, I will also give your clansmen 50 magic sedans, 100 magic projectors, and 3 large-scale magic illusion projectors in the name of our company. As for how these things will be distributed, it will be up to you to decide. What do you think?" Cassandra was surprised as she looked at He with a doubtful look. "Why are you doing this?" He, "I know that you humans have a saying that there's no such thing as a free lunch. You're giving me all these things at once. There must be a plot." He rolled his eyes. "Where did all these schemes come from? I just want to do an experiment." Seeing the vigilant look on Cassandra's face, He gave a helpless sigh. He spread his hands and said, "All right, I'll be direct. Actually, I just want you to help our company test things and see how much your dragon race will accept these two things. If many dragons like it, we can keep trading in the future and take what we need. Could it be that you think this kind of normal business is a plot? That isn't certain. You humans have always been cunning, so when it comes to trading with you humans, it's always the other races that suffer." Cassandra said with a look of disdain. "Hey, not everyone among us humans is like this, all right? Rather, most of us do business properly, and there are only a few scum who have schemes. Then again, this is in your hands. What do you think I can do to make you suffer a loss?" He said in an aggrieved voice. Cassandra tilted her head like a naughty little girl to think for a bit before giving a nod. It's right to think like this. All right, I'll agree to your request, but I can't guarantee that my clansmen will like it. If they don't like it, don't think that I'll give you back the things you've given me. Of course, I've already given you a gift, How could I take it back? Sue-E said with a faint smile. Cassandra waved her hand. When she was about to leave, she suddenly thought of something and turned to Sue-E with a grin. Sue-E, since you want to give a gift, why don't you be more generous? Other than a magic sedan and a magic projector, can you also give me a bit of the fun things I've seen in the past few days? Perhaps my clansmen will be interested in other things? Sue-E couldn't help blinking as he looked over Cassandra again, who said that this dragon only had the intelligence of a little girl. Right now, she was clearly smiling like a cunning human merchant. After looking at Cassandra, Sue-E could only helplessly nod through gritted teeth. All right, I'll promise you. As long as it's something you're interested in, I'll let you bring a bit back. Cassandra immediately revealed a smile. She stood on her tiptoes and patted Sue-Yi's shoulder. Sue-E, you are a very good human. I like you very much. All right, I'm going to try out the magic sedan now. Come find me after you've prepared everything. After throwing down these words, Cassandra ran off without a trace. Sue-E could only watch her leave with a bitter smile, thinking that he really had underestimated the intelligent races other than humans. Especially the dragons who were said to have high intelligence. They definitely weren't that easy to trick. Sue-E, you really are powerful. Seveny came over from the side, looking in the direction Cassandra disappeared in as she gave an emotional sigh. When you were doing business with the elves, dwarves, and halflings, I was very surprised. I never thought that you would be planning on doing business with the dragons. Sue-E gave a shrug. This isn't anything strange. The dragons are beings with needs, and as long as there are needs, there's a possibility of trading, right? Seveny looked at Sue-E with a strange look. Sue-E, you always emphasized that your identity as a merchant was more important than being a magician, but now I feel that. You really are clear on your position. Sue-E laughed. This is called sticking to oneself. How about it? Seveny, are you interested in doing some business with the dragon race to practice? Just as a test for developing the Demon Cloud continent in the future? Seveny turned to look at the fire-red magic sedan driving off from Sheenfei City, and her eyes revealed a look of expectation as she slowly nodded. All right, I'm looking forward to it. Chapter 1035. As soon as Seveny left, Elder Elucia, Elder Lysania, and Elder Undine came to the Principality of Constantine together. The day after Cassandra appeared, Instructor Carmilla had already informed the 3 elven elders about the appearance of this dragon because of the legend of the Abyss demon race. The 3 elders had already come here 20 days ago and had a long talk with Cassandra. From Cassandra's mouth, the 3 elders learned that the legend of the Abyss demon race was true, but they also learned that the Abyss demon race wasn't as terrifying as the legend said. They wouldn't return to this world like the Demon King of the Apocalypse and bring destruction to this world. Although this was information revealed by a dragon like Cassandra, she was still a legendary dragon that was on the same level as the Abyss demon race, so it was very believable when she personally said it. So after talking with Cassandra, whether it was Instructor Carmilla or the 3 elven elders, they all let out a sigh of relief. But the 3 elders couldn't be completely assured, so they hoped that they could personally send people with Cassandra to Cinderclast Island where the dragons were. They wanted to ask more dragons and other ancient races that might exist on the Demon Cloud continent for information about the Abyss demon race. This time, they came together again to send over the people they had selected. According to the agreement, the 3 elven tribes would each choose 20 elves to set off with the fleet. Other than communicating with the dragons and other races, they also had the intention of sending reinforcements to the elves in the first exploration fleet. But when Sue-E saw the 3 elders, he found that there were 50 elves behind each of them. Sue-E looked at Elder Lucia in surprise. Elder Lucia, the Moon Shadow tribe and the Azhara tribe have more people than your Night Song tribe, so it's fine if they send more people, but why do you also need to send so many people? Isn't your tribe already short on manpower? Elder Elucia smiled faintly. Exploring the secrets of the Abyss demon race is a major matter. For this reason, it is necessary to dispatch all of our clan's manpower. Sue threw a glance at the solemn-looking Elder Lysania and Elder Undine before turning to Elder Alicia, as he couldn't help shaking his head. I say, Elder Alicia, I admit that you've learned some of our human disguises, but if you want to disguise yourself in front of me, you're still too inexperienced. Elder Alicia blinked and asked, Is my disguise really that bad? It's that bad. Sue nodded solemnly. He then looked at Elder Lysania and Elder Undine and asked in a deep voice, All right, just tell me what you want. We've been old friends for so many years. Why can't we talk about it openly? The three elders looked at each other. After a little hesitation, Elder Lysania smiled and said, Well, I won't hide it. Chairman Sue, I heard that your new flyer has plans to develop a newly discovered continent. Well, we do have plans. Why? Are you interested? We're very interested. Elder Undine took over. The expression on her face was really serious. Chairman Sue, as you can see, science has been completely controlled by you humans. We elves can't get much room for development. Now that a new continent has suddenly appeared, I think this is a good opportunity for all elves. You mean you want to go to the Demon Cloud continent and create your own territory for the elves? Sue frowned and asked, Three elders, it's not that I look down on you, but with your current strength, do you really think you have the ability to do this? The Demon Cloud continent was not completely devoid of other creatures. Maybe there are more powerful races than us humans? So we need to explore first, right? Elder Lysania replied. Right now, we're only proposing this idea. As for how to implement it, it will depend on the specific situation. Of course, I think the most important thing is to get the support of Chairman Sue and the new flyer. Suyi's eyes swept over the three elders and saw that they weren't joking. It has been more than 15 years since he came in contact with a Night Song tribe led by Elder Alicia. In these 15 years, Sue and the Elven tribe have been closely cooperating. He even married Agnes and Tvisti, these two elven wives. It could be said that his relationship with the elves was very close. He knew better than any human how much the elves yearned for living space. And just as Elder Undine said, the Signs was now almost completely controlled by humans, leaving very little space for the elves to live. So now that there was a whole new continent in front of them, it was no different from a piece of delicious barbecue in front of a person who had been hungry for a few days. It was full of endless temptation, making it impossible for them to resist. After Sue pondered for a moment, he sighed softly. All right, three elders, I understand your thoughts. But before that, I think I have to remind you. In fact, after these years of development, at least your three tribes have established a good foundation in the human society of the Signs. Even if you want to go to the new continent to seek more living space, I think it's better if you don't give up your hard-earned foundation here. Who said we're giving up? Elder Lysania looked at Sue with wide eyes. Right now, we can earn millions or even tens of millions of gold coins every year. It would be a pity to throw it all away. We also count on relying on this money to buy some military magic machines from your new flyer to prepare for entering the new continent in the future. Yes. Elder Alicia nodded with a smile. Chairman Sue, if our exploration of the Demon Cloud continent goes smoothly, it is very likely that we will need your support in terms of military magic machines. I hope you can support us in this regard when the time comes. Well, it's too early to say anything now. Let's explore the situation of the Demon Cloud continent first. Sue said. Yes, that's right. The three elders were naturally very clear that this matter would take a long time and a lot of preparation work. It was impossible to make a decision so early. So the three elders handed over the 150 elves they brought to Sue and let him integrate them into the reinforcement fleet that would set off in a few days. After that, they went to meet Cassandra again. As the oldest intelligent race on the Signs, although they were much younger than Cassandra, because they had inherited many inheritances from the elves, they knew more about the ancient legends of the continent than the average person. Many of them could be verified by Cassandra. However, when Sue took them to the valley where Cassandra had been hiding every day during this period, they did not see the huge dragon at all. Don't tell me this guy ran off to play again? Sue, he had a headache. Cassandra was now very important to the new flyer. Whether it was the reinforcement fleet or the exploration of the new continent, she had a lot to do with it. However, she was a legendary dragon, and they could not keep her as a prisoner all day long to prevent her from suddenly running away. However, she had great curiosity about the various novelties in the new Flight Commerce main base. When she was not watching fantasy movies, she would run around everywhere. Fortunately, she had always remembered Su Yi's instructions to transform into her human form when she went out to play. Otherwise, she would have caused a lot of trouble long ago. After looking around and making sure that Cassandra should not have run to the nearby mountains to play, Su Yi took out a magic communicator from his arms. "Hello, Heart, where's Cassandra?" Because Cassandra could not be treated as a prisoner and could not be allowed to run around, Su Yi asked Heart, the captain of the guards, to personally lead a team to follow Cassandra. In addition to meeting some of Cassandra's requirements, it was also to prevent her from causing any trouble and to conveniently grasp her whereabouts. After a while, a crisp voice sounded from the magic communicator. It was not Heart, but the familiar voice of Akali. "Mr. President, we did it. We did it." Su Yi was startled. "What did you succeed in? Is it the project you've been researching recently? Let me think. Could it be the transmission of magic wave signals?" "Yeah. Oh no, that's not it either. But it can also be said that this is the case." Akali's words were a little incoherent. It seemed that she was too excited and could not organize her words for a while. While Su Yi was puzzled, there was also a trace of excitement in his heart. Akali's research project was about the magic communication network. If she could make a major breakthrough, it would bring them one step closer to the goal of successfully creating a complete communication network in this world. And if they could have a complete communication network like on Earth, Su Yi would not need Cassandra, a dragon, to transmit messages. Instead, they could directly maintain contact with the ocean exploration fleet 10,000 kilometers away, which was undoubtedly much more convenient. Thinking of this, Su Yi realized that he did not make this call to ask about the progress of Akali's research. Although this was also very important, he wanted to ask about Cassandra's whereabouts. "Wait, Akali, why did you answer this call? Hearts? And what about Cassandra?" "Captain Hart is by my side. As for Cassandra," on the other end of the magic communicator, Akali seemed to turn around and chat with the others before continuing. "Mr. President, I have to thank Miss Cassandra for the breakthrough in my research this time." Su Yi was stunned. How did Akali's research have anything to do with Cassandra? Chapter 1036. When Su Yi and the three elven elders rushed to the experimental base set up by the Academy of Magic on the periphery of the main base, they saw that Cassandra had already transformed into her dragon form and was floating in the air. She was surrounded by magic power, and various magical elements of different attributes were surging back and forth. She looked extremely terrifying. "What is she doing?" Su Yi asked in astonishment as he flew to Akali, who was also floating in the air and staring at Cassandra while nervously taking notes. "Also, why did she transform into her dragon form? Didn't I tell you not to leak the news?" "Huh, President, you're here." Akali just raised her head and glanced at Su Yi before turning her head to continue staring at Cassandra. She also casually instructed the other researchers around her to do something. Seeing that she was at her busiest, Su Yi shook his head and retreated to the side. The three elders who came with Su Yi also flew over. Elder Undine glanced at Cassandra and asked in puzzlement, "It seems that she's using the special dragon language magic of the dragons." "Dragon language magic?" Elder Lucia and Elder Lysania looked at each other and shook their heads in unison. The Night Song tribe and the Moonshadow tribe were not split from the Elven royal court like the Azhara tribe, led by Elder Undine, so they did not retain much of the Elven heritage. They had only heard of the dragon language magic, but had no understanding of it at all. Now that they saw it with their own eyes, they realized that this magic was very different from the magic the humans had modified later on and the magic of the elves. It was indeed very likely that it was the legendary dragon language magic. But the question was, what was Cassandra doing here with the dragon language magic? The three elders and Sue-E watched as Cassandra condensed more and more magical elements, and finally gathered together to form a huge elemental sphere around her huge dragon body. Then, the huge sphere, made up of different magical elements, gradually separated from her body and slowly floated into the air. The researchers who were still on the ground pushed out a strange-looking machine out of nowhere. They aimed the tip of the machine at the elemental ball that was already floating in the air. After a series of dazzling operations, the tip of the machine shot out a pale green magical light directly into the elemental ball. Then, the elemental sphere reacted, and a thin ray of light mixed with the aura of other magical elements shot out from it. It followed the path of the light green ray of light and accurately hit the tip of the sphere. All the researchers, including Akali, immediately showed expressions of fanaticism and surprise. They all gathered around the strange-looking machine and began to talk loudly. "Hey, Chairman Sue, what are they doing?" Elder Lysani couldn't help but ask Sue-E. Sue-E shook his head. "Don't ask me." "I don't know." "You don't know?" The three elders looked at Sue-E in disbelief. "You're the chairman of New Flyer. Don't you know what your subordinates are researching? That's not strange." Sue-E shrugged. The research related to magic machines has now been subdivided into many categories. Although I've led the research in this area, it's impossible for me to be proficient in all aspects. However, they should be conducting research on the feedback of magic signals. This is a very important research in the establishment of a magic communication network. The three elven elders were confused. After looking at each other, they could only give up on the topic. At this moment, Cassandra had also discovered Sue-E. She flapped her wings and flew over. "Hey, Sue, you came to me so quickly. Have you already prepared the things that you want to give me?" "Not so fast." Sue-E shook his head and pointed at the three elven elders. "It's the three of them. They still have some things to discuss with you. It's you guys again." Cassandra glanced at the three elders and revealed an impatient look. "Didn't I already answer your questions last time? What else is there to ask? I'm still busy going back to watch the illusion film. Yesterday was the best time to watch it." Seeing the three elders looking at him for help, Sue coughed and said to Cassandra, "That's right, Cassandra. I forgot to introduce you last time. This is Elder Undine. The magic illusion projection device developed by our Chamber of Commerce is based on the illusion magic provided by Elder Undine's Azhara tribe. In addition, although the illusion film you watched was shot by the New Moon Chamber of Commerce, the Azhara tribe also participated in it." "Oh." Cassandra revealed an interested look and looked at Elder Undine. "Then come with me. I'll watch the film while chatting with you." After saying that, she flapped her wings and flew towards the valley where she was hiding. The three elders revealed helpless, bitter smiles before shaking their heads and following her. When Hart's team followed, Sue-E landed beside Akali and the researchers. "Hey, Akali, can you explain to me what is going on now?" Akali looked at the researchers discussing, and after hesitating a bit, she pulled Sue-E to the side. "Sir Chairman, do you remember what you mentioned to me last time? About setting up a magic signal tower in the sky, so we can get rid of the restrictions of the land and conveniently transmit magic signals to any place?" "Of course." Sue-E nodded. This idea, there was no doubt that Sue-E was filled with emotions when he thought of the satellites on Earth. To him, if this world had something similar, it wouldn't be a problem to communicate over 10,000 kilometers. "Could it be that you've succeeded? How is that possible?" Akali stuck out her tongue before pointing at the elemental sphere floating in the air and excitedly saying, "But with Cassandra's help, we've made a very important breakthrough in our research. You're using this thing as a magic signal transmission station?" Sue-E looked at the strange elemental sphere and knit his brows. "But this thing isn't a stabilizing device. It has almost no practical use." "That doesn't matter. This elemental sphere is mainly formed by gathering magic elemental energy through dragon magic, so it is still magic in essence. As long as it is magic, we can use a magic array to simulate it in theory. Isn't this what Sir Chairman told us back then? That's right. But dragon magic is very different from the magic we humans and elves use. Are you certain you can research it? Su-yi asked. No problem. Akali clenched her fist and waved it. But Sir Chairman, can you let Cassandra stay here for a bit longer? Our research is at the most critical juncture, and we can't do without her. That's not possible. Su-yi shook his head. The itinerary has already been set, and we can't let her stay any longer because of this research. Don't forget, countless people from the exploration fleet we sent out last year are still waiting 10,000 kilometers away. Is that so? Akali suddenly became dejected. Sir Chairman, it wasn't easy for me to see the hope of a breakthrough in my research. I'm even sure that this will change the history of magic communication in the signs. If Cassandra leaves like this, won't this research be hopeless? Who told you it's hopeless? It's not like Cassandra won't come back this time. Akali was stunned. She'll come back? Why? Didn't the dragons leave the signs long ago? They won't come back. But she's coming back this time. Since there's a first time, there will be a second time, and even more. Besides, our Chamber of Commerce might become official business partners with the dragons in the future. When that time comes, let's not talk about Cassandra. I might even help you invite a few dragon experts to help you with your research. How about it? Are you satisfied? If that's the case, then that's great. Akali instantly became excited. Sir Chairman, you must invite a few dragon experts back as soon as possible. The dream of unobstructed communication across the entire planet will depend on them. Don't get too excited. It will take at least 2 months to go from here to the dragon's habitat and back. Plus the time needed to negotiate with the dragons, I think. It will be next year at the earliest to realize this idea. Next year? Akali's face that had just revealed a happy expression immediately fell. Sir Chairman, can't you hurry up? You want to hurry up? Unless you go to the dragons and ask for their advice, otherwise. Halfway through his words, Su-yi's heart suddenly thumped. When he saw the bright light in Akali's eyes, he immediately cursed in his heart. Sure enough, after Akali was stunned for a moment, she immediately waved her hands vigorously. Yes, let's do it. Sir Chairman, since the dragons can't come over, then we might as well go over. My research is now at the most critical stage, and I can't afford to waste any time. Sir Chairman, I have decided, let me lead a research team and set off with the reinforcement fleet. Su-yi helplessly covered his face and sighed. Akali, are you crazy? That place is a full 10,000 kilometers away from here. Do you want to go that far? For research, distance is not a problem, Akali said vehemently. But if you go, what about the research work here? The basic research here can be done by others. I am responsible for the most cutting-edge theoretical research. Now that I have found a breakthrough, how can I let it go? Sir Chairman, don't try to persuade me. I have already decided. Looking at Akali's glowing eyes, Su-yi, who knew her temperament, knew very well that she would not listen to anyone's advice at this time. But when he thought of the reinforcement fleet, including a magic communication research team, Su-yi suddenly felt a deep sense of absurdity surging up. It was clearly a fleet sent out to reinforce the first exploration fleet. How could there be so many things that were not part of the plan mixed in? Chapter 1037. 5 days later, a fleet of 5 large transport magic ships, 30 guard ships, 10 magic airships, 100 small magic speedboats, and 2,000 Frestech Chamber of Commerce guards left the harbor of the Frestech Chamber of Commerce's main base. This fleet could be considered the largest fleet in the history of the Frestech Chamber of Commerce, as well as the fleet with the strongest military force. Other than the 2,000 guards and the reinforcements from the various departments of New Flyer, the fleet also had a delegation of 300 people from the Lampari Kingdom and 150 elf from the 3 elven tribes. It could be considered very complicated. For this fleet, the core mission was, of course, to reinforce the first Frestech Chamber of Commerce's exploration fleet in terms of resources. They would help them explore the local situation, establish a forward base, and create a suitable communication channel. Other than this, the extra members of the fleet had different missions. For example, the people sent by the Lampari Kingdom and the 3 elven tribes were mainly to explore the Demon Cloud continent. The research team, led by Akali, hoped to obtain more cooperation from the dragons. The construction team, sent by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, other than helping New Flyer build a forward base, they were also sent to investigate the geological situation of the nearby islands. In short, the mission of this fleet was very complicated and heavy. So just to build this fleet, New Flyer had sent out half of the magic ships that New Flyer had accumulated over the years. They even sent out 2,000 guards from the Tight Guard force, just to ensure that the fleet's mission went smoothly. According to the information Cassandra provided, this fleet would arrive at Firecrag Island in a month if nothing unexpected happened, meeting up with the previous fleet. Next, they would stay for half a month near Cinderclast Island and the island identified by the Voyage Exploration Fleet. After that, they would send some people to explore the Magic Cloud continent, which was not far from Cinderclast Island. Because this was their first time coming to the Demon Cloud continent, they wouldn't go too deep this time. They would just have a general understanding of the situation on the Demon Cloud continent. For example, the topography, landscape, climate, human society, and so on. The most important thing was to first figure out the current distribution of forces on the Demon Cloud continent, so that it would be convenient to officially land on the Demon Cloud continent in the future. Because the dragon race didn't care about these things, they couldn't provide such information. New Flyer could only collect it herself. An important problem that hindered the collection of this information was that, according to the information provided by Cassandra, there seemed to be no human presence on the demonic cloud continent. Therefore, when the humans, mainly the New Flyer, landed on the demonic cloud continent, they were bound to attract the attention of the natives of the demonic cloud continent. However, Sue-Yi wasn't particularly worried about this. Based on the technology level of the Signs continent, the technology level of the Demon Cloud continent in the same world shouldn't be that high. Otherwise, Cassandra wouldn't have been so intrigued by the various magical machines in New Flyer. The only thing to worry about was whether the indigenous races on the Demon Cloud continent would have particularly powerful individual combat power. However, Cassandra said that there was no intelligent race on the Demon Cloud continent that could threaten the dragon race. So even if there was such a race, it shouldn't be so powerful that the New Flyer guards equipped with high-end military magic machines couldn't deal with it. Because they didn't know the specific situation on the Demon Cloud continent, the time of the preliminary exploration was uncertain. However, after Sue-Yi ordered the 2 fleets to meet, they must send back information on the 1st of every month to let him know the general situation. Of course, this didn't mean that Sue-Yi could command them remotely. Because when the information from there reached Sue-Yi's hands, it was already outdated information from a month ago. Of course, it was impossible to command according to this information. Therefore, the main things on the Demon Cloud continent had to be handled by the person in charge of the fleet. Although Sue-Yi was not too relieved about this, he could only accept this situation. In order to change this helpless situation, he could only hope that the research team led by Akali would make another breakthrough in the research of magical communication and create conditions for ultra-long-distance communication signal transmission as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Sue-Yi was a little more grateful that Akali insisted on taking a research team to Cinderclast Island to negotiate with the dragon race, with Cassandra as the middleman. The middle dragon, the dragon race, should have a reason to have peaceful contact with a New Flyer. Then the New Flyer could create a good relationship with the dragon race with various novel magic machines, which would be very helpful for the cooperation between Akali and the dragon race. However, no matter how smooth Akali's research was, it was impossible to successfully establish a complete hyperspace communication network in a short time. Sue-Yi was helpless in this regard. There are no shortcuts in the development of science and technology. He had brought all kinds of mechanical theory from Earth with him, which was considered a cheat. If he wanted to rely on his mechanical theory to develop the magic machines of the Signs continent by leaps and bounds, that was just wishful thinking. In the beginning, he played a huge role in the development of the magic machine industry, but the reason was that before him, Signs was simply a blank in this area. Now, with more than 10 years of development, promotion, and research, the specialization of the magic machine industry on Signs had gradually strengthened and gradually entered the stage of having a clear classification and specialization. Even Sue E could not know every aspect of the magic machine industry like the back of his hand. He might still be the undisputed leader in mechanical theory on this continent, but when it came to magic, that was not necessarily the case. At the end of the day, even if he was a very powerful 5-star archmage, he was still not a magister. In terms of high-end magic research, he still could not compare to those real magisters. However, in terms of the most basic research, which was also the most fundamental research, Sue E was still far ahead of all other magicians. As early as 7 years ago, Sue E had already proposed to directly analyze magic data in an attempt to turn magic, which was previously extremely mysterious in the eyes of magicians and ordinary people, into a subject that could be professionally analyzed. After more than 2 years of research with mentor Carmilla, Sue E publicly published the paper Magic Data Analysis 4.5 years ago, officially bringing this theory to the entire circle of magicians and signs. After many successful experiments, and the New Flight College's successful teaching of magic to many ordinary people who were thought to have no magical talent, the magicians and signs gradually accepted this novel theory. Now, on Signs, this theory had basically been popularized, changing the way magic research was conducted on the entire continent. For example, the research team, led by Akali, was originally very focused on the research of data analysis and the accurate transmission of magic signals. Now, with Akali as the leader, the entire research team of magicians and the research team could not tolerate the vague descriptions that they had when they first started learning magic, such as feeling a huge wave of magic waves, and the more magic elements gathered, the better. And this time, they were planning to cooperate with the dragons in magic research. So with the vague descriptions that were unique to the dragons, Akali would have to put in a lot of effort to make any progress in the research. But this has nothing to do with me anymore. Sue E shrugged. He took one last look at the fleet that had already disappeared into the horizon and turned back to the house. The reinforcement fleet had already set off. Because communication was extremely inconvenient, there was not much he could do other than give his blessings in his heart. Compared to that, he should be more concerned about the matters and signs. On the third day after the reinforcement fleet set off, Shinfei Magic Industry Weekly was published. A piece of news published in this weekly magazine instantly attracted the attention of everyone in Signs. This news was classified under the category of news that reported on the recent activities of New Flyer. But just the title alone was enough to shock everyone. The New Flyer Ocean Exploration Fleet has set off for the second time. Destination, New Continent. New continent. Oh God, there really is a new continent? New Flyer actually discovered a new continent. And when people looked at the specific content of this news, they discovered something that shocked them even more. The one who brought the news of the new continent was actually a dragon. Oh God, it was actually a dragon. It was actually a dragon that only existed in legends. New Flyer's ocean exploration fleet actually encountered a dragon. New continent, dragon race. These two words were like two sharp knives, easily stabbing into everyone's hearts. These two things have been passed down in Signs for thousands of years and had already become legends. Almost no one believed that these things really existed. But now, New Flyer had actually confirmed the existence of these two things in a single breath. Everyone's first reaction was that this was simply a joke. But then they thought that New Flyer didn't need to make such a bad joke. Not to mention that this news was published in New Flyer's strict Shinfei Magic Industry Weekly, and not in the Banner Times that many people thought was the mouthpiece of a New Flyer. This was enough to show that New Flyer wasn't joking at all. Then, was this true? But it was fine if the dragon race was true, but if the new continent was also true, The meaning behind this was just too rich. So after this news was published in the Sheen-famed Magic Industry Weekly, there were countless people and signs that began to move. Chapter 1038. There was a cold wind that blew, and Russell, who was walking quickly, felt a chill on his neck. He couldn't help shivering as he buried his head deeper, while moving even faster into the royal palace. Looking at the emperor's private study that was several hundred meters away, Russell gave a sigh in his heart. In this cold weather, he should have stayed in his room and enjoyed the warmth of the magic air conditioner. At the same time, he should have been drinking hot red tea while enjoying the new documentary overlooking the signs that the new Moon Chamber of Commerce had just made. But now he was forced to run to the royal palace that was several kilometers away from his home. It really was hard on him. He had to thank the new flyer for inventing the comfortable and fast magic sedan, so he didn't have to waste too much time on the road. He also didn't have to wait too long for the emperor to be unhappy. But after entering the royal palace, he didn't have any convenient tools to use and could only rely on his own 2 feet. The Kanla Empire's royal palace was the largest building on the continent. In order to show the empire's grandeur, any 2 buildings in the royal palace would be separated by several hundred meters or even over 1,000 meters. It took Russell over 20 minutes to walk from the front hall to the private study where the emperor summoned him, and this was based on him running all the way. Thinking of this, Russell suddenly thought of something. It said that the manager of the royal palace had suggested to the emperor that there should be some new flyers magic elevators in the royal palace. This would save quite a bit of time, saving a lot of time when moving through the royal palace, as well as saving a lot of energy for the emperor. However, this very practical suggestion was rejected by His Majesty. Although the reason the emperor gave was that it would cost a lot of money and it wasn't worth it, after Russell looked around at the complicated layout of the royal palace, he suddenly felt that the emperor's real reason for rejecting this suggestion wasn't because of this. In order to show how aloof the Kanla Empire's emperor was, the royal palace was built on a mountain. The terrain was very high, so there was a large difference between the palaces. For example, Russell was walking from the main hall to the emperor's private study. It was several hundred meters in a straight line, but the height difference was several dozen meters. Of course, such a complicated terrain made it very convenient for people to pass through the palace, but it also made the palace very easy to defend and difficult to attack. From a security point of view, it was very good. His Majesty refused to install a magic elevator that could go up and down in the imperial palace. It was probably because of this. Of course, there might also be another layer of meaning. His Majesty had recently emphasized to the ministers of the Kanla Empire that they must vigorously develop the magic industry that belonged to the Kanla Empire and strive to reduce their reliance on the new flyer. Now that he had refused to install the magic elevator unique to New Flyer in the Imperial Palace, could it be considered setting an example? However, even though Russell could understand His Majesty's thoughts and felt that as one of the 2 largest empires on the continent, it wasn't advisable for such a large country to rely on a mere new flyer for many things. However, he could only helplessly admit that they had to rely on the new flyer for certain matters. For example, the matter that His Majesty had urgently summoned him to discuss. It was impossible for him to avoid the new flyer no matter what. When he saw His Majesty, he was standing by a wall in his study, looking at a giant map of the signs hanging on the wall, as if he was thinking about something. Hearing Russell come in, His Majesty didn't turn around and directly said, "Russell, come over and take a look." Sue hurriedly threw the coat he had taken off to the maid and quickly walked over. "Your Majesty, I'm late. Please forgive me." His Majesty Kandra Emperor shook his head and picked up a stick beside him, pointing at where the Kanla Empire was on the map. "Russell, do you see this? Our Kanla Empire is actually only occupying a small part of the signs." Russell looked up at the giant map that represented the Kanla Empire. He thought that our Kanla Empire was clearly the largest country in the signs, occupying close to a quarter of the signs, but His Majesty Kandra Emperor actually thinks it's small? Of course, as the emperor of an empire, he would never feel that he had too much land under his name. with His Majesty Kandra Emperor's thoughts. He couldn't wait to rule all of the signs under his rule. Your Majesty, as long as we continue to work hard and strengthen our country, the Kamla Empire will definitely become stronger and stronger. Russell replied in a deep voice. His Majesty Kandra Emperor revealed a smile. He moved the stick in his hand and pointed at the empty space on the left side of the map that represented the endless seas. Perhaps you think that our Kamla Empire is already big enough, but think about it. The Empire only occupies a small part of the signs, and there are still the Demon Cloud continent and 3 other continents that haven't been explored yet. Then in this world, our Kamla Empire isn't considered anything at all. Russell's heart skipped a beat. He turned to look at the Emperor and found that his face was filled with emotions. Your Majesty, you've also read the latest issue of the Shinfei Magic Machine Industry Weekly, right? Right? The Kandra Emperor nodded. Russell nodded. The latest issue of the Shinfei Magic Machine Industry Weekly has published the latest information obtained by their exploration fleet. According to the information, the existence of the Demon Cloud continent has been confirmed. Moreover, according to the results of the New Flyers exploration fleet, the Demon Cloud continent is even bigger than our signs. Other than the Demon Cloud continent, the New Flyer has also obtained information on the other 3 continents. If they had been discovered, our world would suddenly have 4 giant continents, and it wouldn't just be the only one in our signs. After saying this, the Kandra Emperor gave a laugh filled with self-ridicule. We always thought that the continent was everything in this world, but now it seems like the things in the legends are real, and we're just trash that have always stayed in the signs. Russell knew that the Emperor was just sighing and didn't need him to say anything, so he just remained silent. As expected, after the Kandra Emperor sighed, he suddenly slammed the stick in his hand on the map and raised his voice. Russell, after hearing this news, do you still think that our empire is big? A strange look quickly appeared on Russell's face. After thinking for a bit, he replied in a deep voice, Your Majesty, if you want to conquer a bigger world, this minister is willing to follow you to the death. The Kandra Emperor gave a satisfied nod. It's good that you have this idea, but it's only an idea right now. Even if we want to conquer a new continent, we don't even have a ship that can sail there, so it's all nonsense. Russell immediately looked up, and his eyes lit up. Your Majesty, as long as you give the order, the Empire's navy will fight for you tens of thousands of kilometers away without a word of complaint. The Kandra Emperor revealed a smile and turned back to his seat before signaling for Russell to sit down in front of him. I'm very happy that the Empire's navy is loyal to me, but I said it just now, the Empire's navy doesn't even have a ship that can sail tens of thousands of kilometers to the new continent. Even if you are loyal, you can't do anything for me. Hearing this, Russell was even more certain of the Emperor's meaning. His heart filled with excitement as he tentatively asked, Then Your Majesty, the Kandra Emperor raised his hand to cut Russell off and asked back, Russell, tell me, is it possible for the New Flyer to sell the magic boats that they can use to sail the seas to the Empire's navy? Russell's heart filled with joy, but he revealed an awkward look. After knitting his brows to think, he shook his head and said, I'm afraid it's very hard. The New Flyer has only started producing large amounts of magic boats in the past few years. Up to now, according to what I know, they only have 100 large transport magic boats and magic guard ships that can sail the seas. They don't have more than 150 ships. These ships are barely enough for their own use. They probably don't have any extra to sell to us. There is nothing in this world that can't be sold, the Kandra Emperor said in a strangely certain voice. The Kandra Emperor said with certainty, The reason why they aren't selling is because the price isn't high enough. But Your Majesty, the Empire's navy doesn't have that much money. Russell deliberately revealed a helpless look. The Kandra Emperor revealed a faint smile and reached out a finger to point at Russell before saying with a smile, Don't cry poor in front of me. I'm very clear on the situation of the Empire's navy. I called you here this time mainly to have you probe the New Flyer and see what price they're willing to sell the magic boats for. If the price is right, I don't mind proposing to the Empire's Parliament to increase the budget of the Navy next year. Russell was overjoyed when he finally got the answer he wanted from His Majesty's mouth. He quickly stood up and bowed to His Majesty. He said respectfully, "On behalf of the Imperial Navy, I thank Your Majesty for your care. I am doing this for the future of the Empire." The Kandra Emperor turned to look at the giant map on the wall and gave a sigh. Russell gave a sigh. When the legends were just legends, we could still be frogs in a well. Now that the new flyer has placed a new world in front of us, if it's the same as before, the Empire's future can't be predicted. Chapter 1039. Because of the news of the new continent, it wasn't just the Kamla Empire that was moving. The year 300-800, according to Earth, it should be the first year of the new era. When the first spring breeze blew across the signs, the second fleet sent by the new flyer to the new continent sent back the 10th exploration report of the Demon Cloud continent to the new flyer headquarters. After this exploration report was filtered, a part of it was published in the Frestek Magic Machine Industry Weekly, the Banna Times, and the other newspapers. It immediately ignited the passion of everyone on the Signs continent. Since the new flyer released the first piece of information on the new continent last September, they would release new pieces of information on the new continent each month. The people of the Signs became more and more interested in the new continent as the new flyer released more and more information. The legends of the new continent had been spread on the Signs continent for thousands of years. Now that the Frestek Chamber of Commerce had discovered the true new continent through their explorations, they were slowly unraveling the mysteries of the new continent bit by bit. It made everyone yearn to understand the new continent and even wanted to personally go to the new continent to experience this new world. According to the information released by the new flyer, there were very few people on this continent called the Demon Cloud continent, other than the dragons they met outside the continent. After the new flyer's exploration team landed on the Demon Cloud continent, they had explored an area of over 500 square kilometers in 10 months, but they had only found a few locals. What was very surprising was that among the locals of the Demon Cloud continent, the ones that they had found the most were the infamous gnomes that only existed in legends on the Signs. Other than this, the new flyer's exploration team had also met 2 gnome tribes that had migrated from the Signs. As for the others, they hadn't found anything yet. The information released in the 10th exploration report was mainly focused on the first phase of the forward base that the new flyer had chosen on Dawn Island near Fire Rock Island. According to the plan, the new flyer would continue to invest in this base, while choosing a location on the coast of the Demon Cloud continent near Dawn Island to build a true forward base, laying the foundation for further exploration of the Demon Cloud continent. When the new flyer announced this, they also announced that in order to better explore the Demon Cloud continent, the new flyer sincerely invited people from all walks of life and signs to join them in exploring this unknown new world. Many people were puzzled by the announcement of this news. The value of this new continent was incomparably large. Everyone felt that after the new flyer had this first-hand information, they should have enjoyed this information alone and then slowly digest the value of this new continent. However, the Frestek Chamber of Commerce had openly announced this precious information to the entire Signs continent, even inviting others to join them in exploring the new continent. Why was the new flyer doing this? Flyer Signs flyer? This wouldn't be a scam from the new flyer, right? It was no wonder people doubted the motives of the new flyer because this move really didn't make sense. The most important thing was that from beginning to end, the information that the Frestek Chamber of Commerce announced about the new continent and a legendary dragon race and halflings were all just the Frestek Chamber of Commerce's side of the story. There was almost no one who had seen the real thing. If it wasn't for the good reputation of a new flyer, there would have been people who would have accused the new flyer of deceiving the public. But since there were people who doubted it, naturally there would be people who believed it. Compared to the doubt of the normal citizens, the countries of the Signs continent that were supposed to be the most cautious had a higher degree of trust in this. After the 10th announcement from the new flyer, there were a bunch of cooperation requests and orders for the magic boats that were sent to the new flyer headquarters. The cooperation requests were, of course, to cooperate with the new flyer and participate in the exploration of the new continent. As for the magic boat order, naturally, there was a deeper meaning behind it. Sir Chairman, do we really want to sell the magic boats? The previous manager of the New Flyer shipyard, the current chairman of the Sheen Fei Shipping Chamber of Commerce, Ike Kalug looked at the orders in his hand and deeply knit his brows. We don't even have enough ships for ourselves. How can we sell them to others? So the most important thing is to increase production and increase the output. My plan is for you to cooperate with several other companies and subcontract the parts of the ships. You can also hand over the casting of the ships to other companies, which can greatly reduce the pressure on you. Other than that, you can train one or several other companies and have them grasp the shipbuilding technology, indirectly increasing the output. The headquarters will support you on this, so you don't need to worry too much. Hearing Sui say this, Kalug's tightly knit brows became even deeper and his face was filled with unwillingness. Sir Chairman, you want to give away our precious technology again? After hesitating a bit, Kalug gritted his teeth and continued. Sir Chairman, if it was before, as long as you said a single word, I would have obeyed even if I wasn't willing. But now that the shipyard has been separated from the company, you want us to decide our own development path and be responsible for our own profits and losses. So I feel that. Your suggestion for us. I'm afraid it isn't a good thing. So you want to reject my suggestion? Kalug scratched his head, looking very awkward. If Sir Chairman insists, of course I will obey your orders. But, Sue, he patted his shoulder with a smile. If you're really not willing, of course I won't force you to agree. But Kalug, it's best if you seriously consider it. Is my suggestion more beneficial or harmful to the development of the shipping company? Don't give yourself an answer too quickly. Think about the history of our new flyer's development, and perhaps you'll find an answer. Seeing Kalug deeply knit his brows and slowly walk away, while thinking, Sui couldn't help shaking his head. Separating the departments of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce and forming their own companies, although it would reduce the burden on the high-level members of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, especially Sui, it would make the departments more eager to develop and increase the vitality of the company. But the consequences of this was that the departments now had their own ideas. They wouldn't just ignore everything like before and only listen to the orders of the chairman. If it was before, Sui could just give an order and hand over whatever technology you wanted. Other people would only question it and wouldn't refute it. But now that he wanted the shipping company to release some of their shipbuilding technology and promote the shipbuilding industry on the signs, especially the development of the magic boat industry, Kalug was shaken. Of course, he wouldn't force Kalug because this was a change of thought that he had to go from a manager to a chairman. If Kalug could free his thoughts, he could keep working in this position. If he couldn't, Sui wouldn't show mercy. Of course, even if Kalug suddenly became powerful and started developing the ship industry with the other companies of the continent, with the current Iron Magic Boat shipbuilding industry on the Signs continent, it would take several years for it to reach this scale. So even if the new flyer accepted the orders for the magic boats, especially the large magic boats, they wouldn't be able to deliver them in a short period of time. It was a good thing that all the customers were clear on this fact, so they didn't dare rush them and could only bitterly wait. According to Sui's initial estimates, it would take around 5 years before the new flyer would be able to complete the first batch of orders. This meant that in at least 5 years, the Signs would be able to form a fleet outside of the new flyer. Then in these 5 years, the new flyer would be able to monopolize the information and resources of the new continent for 5 years. The new flyer had to make enough achievements in these 5 years. That way, they would be able to establish an unbreakable advantage in the Great Signs Voyage era that would begin in 5 years. As for what the people of the company were worried about, when the other countries and powers obtained the ability to sail the seas, they would definitely participate in the development of the new continent. This would greatly affect the benefits that the new flyer would obtain in the new continent. Sui didn't doubt this, but he wasn't worried about it either. In the end, the new flyer was just a company. According to the current situation of the Demon Cloud continent, the Demon Cloud continent was even bigger than the signs and was rich in resources. If it was just a new flyer, it was almost impossible to develop the entire Demon Cloud continent. This was because whether it was manpower or resources, the new flyer would be lacking in them. So the most appropriate thing to do was to pull in some investors and develop it together. On Earth, this was a very common method. But for someone from the signs like Kulyuj, this method wasn't easy to understand. To them, even if a new flyer couldn't take it all in a short period of time, they could just take it slowly. With the new flyer's strength and rapid development, they would be able to control the entire Demon Cloud continent sooner or later. However, He wasn't willing to do this. The reason was very simple. It was because he was already 40 years old. Chapter 1040. The news of the new continent had whetted the appetites of all the countries on the continent, but they also understood that without the ability to sail across the ocean, there was no meaning in discussing this. Compared to this, it was more important to stabilize their development first, because only then would they have a chance to grasp the opportunity to develop the new continent. If they fell behind before this, naturally, there was no need to mention anything. So as the news of a new continent was released bit by new flyer, the other countries on the signs began investing more and more in developing the magic machine industry. The companies under the Frestec Chamber of Commerce received cooperation requests from the companies, countries, and other powers of the continent every day, so everyone in the Frestec Chamber of Commerce was very busy. Actually, the busiest and most popular one was without a doubt the Shinfei Household Magical Machine Chamber of Commerce led by Encado. Now that the household magic machines were deeply rooted in signs, everyone understood that the household magic machines could bring great convenience and comfort to their lives. So there were more and more companies investing in the household magic machine industry. Just in the first 4 months of this year, there were over 100 companies that applied to buy household magic machine technology from New Flyer. The technology they bought included all the technology that New Flyer officially sold to the outside world. In order to satisfy the large demand from the outside world, New Flyer responded to the calls of countless people and announced at the beginning of this year that it would release 37 household magic machine technology. This included the magic air conditioner, magic refrigerator, and other high-end products that New Flyer had never announced to the public. Like this, all the household magic machine technology the Frestec Chamber of Commerce could produce would be transferred. It would allow the household magic machines that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce only had before to be produced by other companies. So the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had lost their monopoly. Of course, New Flyer was far ahead of the other companies in terms of technology and craftsmanship. Even if it was the same thing, New Flyer's products were clearly better than the other companies' products in terms of quality and performance. In addition, the New Flyer had already become the symbol of magic machines in the hearts of signs. It had an extremely high reputation, so no matter which country, the Shinfei brand of household magic machines was still the most popular product. There was absolutely no shortage of sales. After entering June, this advantage was once again manifested like in previous years. According to the report from the Shinfei Household Magical Machinery Chamber of Commerce, the sales volume of Shinfei brand household magical machinery this year had greatly increased compared to last year. In the month of May alone, the total sales volume was as high as 1.7 million gold coins. However, after careful calculation, they found that compared to last year, the net profit of the Shinfei Household Magical Machinery Chamber of Commerce had increased quite a bit, but it was obviously lower than the increase in sales. The reason for this phenomenon was due to the increasing number of companies that could manufacture household magic machines. At the same time, the price of various raw materials was constantly rising. Coupled with the increase in labor costs, the cost of manufacturing household magic machines had obviously increased, causing the profit margin to decrease. In the first few years of New Flyer, the lowest profit margin of the Shinfei brand household magic machines was over 50%, and the highest was a shocking 80%. Over the years, with the popularity of household magic machines, the profit margin of the Shinfei brand household magic machines had been decreasing. According to the statistics this year, among the Xinfei brand household magic machines, the Magic Air Conditioner, which had the highest profit margin, only had a profit margin of less than 30%, and the Magic Lamp, which had the lowest profit margin, only had a profit margin of less than 10%. Based on this phenomenon, it could even be said that the era of large profits for household magic machines had passed. Although this was something that He had expected, he never thought that it would appear this quickly. It had to be known that on Earth, this kind of situation only appeared after developing for several decades. In signs, it had only been 16 years since household magic machines had appeared. But after carefully thinking about it, he could only helplessly admit that this situation was brought on by him, because he had always had the idea of promoting the magic machine industry. He didn't hold back on the household magic machine technology. Now that there were many companies that had the ability to manufacture household magic machines, this directly divided the sales volume of the Xinfei brand household magic machines and created competition, reducing the profits of the Xinfei brand household magic machines. The increase in the cost of raw materials and labor was also related to him. Let's talk about labor first. Before New Flyer, although the companies and signs didn't have a fixed salary for their employees, for normal employees, there wasn't a single company that would give them a high salary. For example, 17 years ago, when New Flyer had just been established, the highest salary the companies in Banna City gave was only 10 gold coins a year. When New Flyer had just been established, they actually gave their normal employees a high salary of 5 gold coins a month. Counting it all, that was over 60 gold coins a year. This salary for Banna City, where most people barely didn't starve, and for the entire Lampari Kingdom, it was an exaggerated amount. Almost everyone in Banna City thought that New Flyer and Sui were crazy. But it was because of this that New Flyer was able to quickly hire enough people, quickly meeting their large production needs. So in the beginning, New Flyer didn't even suffer from a lack of production. At the same time, this caused New Flyer's fame to soar, helping New Flyer develop quickly. Based on this, for New Flyer, the advantages outweighed the disadvantages. But for the other companies that entered the industry after New Flyer, Sui's initial salary was without a doubt a great sin. Because New Flyer had already set the standard, it made it so that if the other companies wanted to enter the magic machine industry, they couldn't give a lower salary. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to recruit people, and it was even more impossible for them to poach skilled workers from New Flyer. So after all these years, because of the competition between the companies, the salary kept increasing. Now, New Flyer's salary wasn't high. It could even be considered low among all the companies related to the magic machine industry. The other companies had much higher salaries. This in turn affected New Flyer. Before the Xinfei household magical machinery department was separated, they still stuck to Sui's salary, and no one complained. But after the Xinfei household magical machinery chamber of commerce was established, Encado changed the salary in order to raise the morale of the company's members and establish his prestige. This made the salary of the Xinfei household magical machinery chamber of commerce rise to a rather high standard among the companies related to the magic machine industry. As a result, the labor costs of the Xinfei household magical machinery chamber of commerce immediately soared. Just in the month of May, just the salary and various benefits had reached 630,000 gold coins, a huge increase compared to before. This greatly increased the cost of Xinfei household magical machinery. Then there was the matter of raw materials. When New Flyer had just been established, the people of the signs didn't pay much attention to the raw materials needed to produce magic machines. So among the raw materials needed by the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce, the most expensive were the magic materials needed to draw magic arrays. As for the iron ores, although they were controlled by the Fulcao Chamber of Commerce, the price wasn't high. As for the equally important magic crystals, because they were everywhere, it could be said that they weren't worth much. Afterwards, as the magic machine industry became more and more important, all the countries on the continent began to pay more and more attention to the raw materials related to the magic machine industry. Naturally, the price of these raw materials also increased. Take the iron ores, for example. In the first few years, New Flyer only bought iron ores from the Fulcao Chamber of Commerce for around 2 gold coins per ton. The pig iron that had already been smelted was only around 10 gold coins per ton. But this year, according to the Fulcao Chamber of Commerce's latest price announcement in June, the iron ores had already reached 6 gold coins per ton. The iron ores had risen to 6 gold coins per ton and pig iron to 27 gold coins per ton. Compared to before, it had more than doubled. Even the magic crystals that weren't worth much before, other than the high-quality ones, no one would even spare a glance at them. Now that they had become a necessary energy source for all magic machines, the price had increased greatly. Take the magic crystals that New Flyer bought from the Kanla Empire that met the medium standard. The price had already reached 93 silver coins per ton. Moreover, because of the large demand for magic crystals, the price had increased very quickly. At this time last year, it was only 76 silver coins per ton, but it had already risen to 93 silver coins per ton in a single year. With this speed, it wouldn't be difficult to break through 1 gold coin per ton this year. The demand for raw materials crazily increased along with the price, naturally creating a series of problems. First was that the various countries on the signs had increased their control over raw materials. With the Kanla Empire and the Malar Empire as the leaders, there were many countries that didn't export raw materials at all. Even the only company in the Kanla Empire that traded raw materials was New Flyer. The reason was because New Flyer was the only company that knew how to smelt iron, non-ferrous metals, and magic crystals. Adding in the fact that the Kanla Empire and New Flyer had many cooperation projects, New Flyer could continue to buy raw materials from the Kanla Empire without any restrictions. However, no matter how much they received benefits, the price of these raw materials had greatly increased, increasing the cost of making magic machines. If New Flyer was like this, it could be imagined how the other companies and countries on the continent were. It was fine for the countries that had enough raw materials, but for the countries that didn't have enough raw materials, naturally they had to think of other ways to solve this problem. Among these methods, the most common and easiest one was war. Chapter 1041. The year 3800 of the continental calendar, the first year of the new century, was clearly not a peaceful year. Or more accurately, the second half of the year was not peaceful. Just as they entered July and the summer heat was about to show its unstoppable power, the turmoil first occurred in the southeast corner of the continent. The Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom, which had been silent for several years after launching the invasion of their northern neighbor, suddenly launched another war against their northern neighbor. This time, the excuse given by the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom was a very inconspicuous conflict on the northern border. But after the war started, the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom's stance was not just to resolve a small conflict, but to prepare for an all-out war. Relying on the large amount of military magic machines obtained through their close cooperation with the New Flyer, the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom's army had a fighting strength far greater than that of the neighboring countries. Coupled with the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom's extraordinary financial resources, it only took a month and 10 days for the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom to completely occupy the 2 small duchies in the north. They also occupied a large portion of the other kingdom that they had swallowed in the last war. The 2 small duchies declared their demise, and the kingdom that the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom occupied was also greatly weakened and unable to recover. At the same time, to the west of the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom, less than 1,000 kilometers away, the Welsh Duchy was also restless. In July, the Welsh Duchy suddenly invaded their eastern neighbor, the Tamor Duchy, without declaring war. Half a month later, the Tamor Duchy declared its demise and was completely incorporated into the Welsh Duchy. At the end of July, the Malar Empire suddenly used a border conflict as an excuse to invade the Delayan Kingdom on the southwest border. Although the Delayan Kingdom was a level 3 industrial country that New Flyer assessed as having a large investment in military magic machines, it could not be compared to the huge Malar Empire. After resisting with difficulty for a month and a half, the Delayan Kingdom fully surrendered to the Malar Empire and announced that they would cede over 1,300 square kilometers of land on the border with the Malur Empire to the Malur Empire, as well as open up all the mineral resources in the country to the Malur Empire. In the middle of August, the Kamla Empire did not want to be left behind and also made a move. However, the Kamla Empire did not start a war. Instead, they announced to the world that the Norton Duchy would be incorporated into the Kamla Empire and become part of the southwest province of the Kamla Empire. As soon as the news spread, it immediately caused a commotion among the countries in the southwest corner of Signs. Even though the Norton Duchy was only a small duchy, its geographical location was very unique. It was located right in the middle of the main road that led to the Kamla Empire. If one wanted to go east or northeast from the southwest corner of the continent, other than going over 1,000 kilometers from the southern part of the Endless Sea, the other two paths had to pass through the Norton Duchy. Because of this, the Norton Duchy had always been seen as the gateway to the southwest of the continent. It was one of the gateways to stop the Kamla Empire from invading the southwest corner of the continent. The other was naturally the Kingdom of Ruhr. After the Norton Duchy was incorporated into the Kamla Empire, the Kingdom of Ruhr was the most anxious about it. This was because before this, the border between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Kamla Empire was only in the east of the Kingdom of Ruhr and a small area in the southwest of the Kamla Empire. Previously, when the Kamla Empire invaded the Kingdom of Ruhr twice, the Kingdom of Ruhr was able to successfully resist the invasion mainly because of the support of the New Flyer. They relied on a large number of military magic machines to gain an absolute advantage on the battlefield. However, geographical factors were also very important. Now that the Norton Duchy was incorporated into the Kamla Empire, the border between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Kamla Empire became the border between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Kamla Empire. This meant that the northern part of the Kingdom of Ruhr was directly exposed to the Kamla Empire. Even when the Kingdom of Ruhr had the advantage in military magic machines, it was still extremely difficult for them to resist the all-out attack of the Kamla Empire. Now that the northern border was wide open, the Kingdom of Ruhr had lost their geographical advantage. In addition, the Kamla Empire had been working closely with the New Flyer and had made great progress in military magic machines. Even though the Kingdom of Ruhr still had an advantage in this area, it was extremely small. Therefore, the news of the Norton Duchy being incorporated into the Kamla Empire carried a hidden danger to the Kingdom of Ruhr. If the Kamla Empire once again launched a large-scale invasion, the fate of the Kingdom of Ruhr would be in danger with its current strength. Don't worry too much. The Kamla Empire probably doesn't have the intention to touch you right now. He looked at the anxious chairman of the Kingdom of Ruhr's parliament, Duke Boris, and lightly shook his head. This time, the Kingdom of Ruhr actually sent Duke Boris, an important person who was second only to King Taras, to Sui. This was enough to prove that the internal affairs of the Kingdom of Ruhr were extremely worried about this issue. They don't have the intention to touch us. Duke Boris froze for a moment before shaking his head with a bitter smile. Chairman Su, the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Kamla Empire have always been in conflict. There was even a war in the past, and the hatred between us runs deep. If the Kamla Empire had the opportunity, they would definitely not hesitate to invade us. Your Excellency, I think you should understand better than me that the essence of starting a war is for benefits. If the Kamla Empire launched an invasion against the Kingdom of Ruhr just to protect the honor of the Empire, I don't think even you would believe it, right? Duke Boris nodded with a sullen face. Of course. The Kamla Empire is obviously aiming for the territory of the Kingdom of Ruhr. So you think that they still have this idea? He asked again. Of course. Duke Boris frowned slightly and glanced at Sui. Chairman Su, isn't it normal for them to do this for the sake of territory? Any country would have this idea, not to mention a super large empire like the Kamla Empire. That was in the past. They might not necessarily do so now. He shook his head. After a moment of silence, he said seriously, Your Excellency, I'll say something you don't want to hear. Do you think the territory of the Kingdom of Ruhr has any value that the Kamla Empire has to obtain? Duke Boris looked at Sue E with a puzzled face. Chairman Sue, your question is a bit strange. Isn't it natural for a country to desire territory? But if obtaining this territory doesn't bring any benefits to them, and instead requires them to pay a very high price, then would anyone, or should I say, which country would be willing to do so? Duke Boris frowned deeply. After thinking for a long time, he still didn't understand. Chairman Sue, what you mean is that the Kingdom of Ruhr has no value to the Kanla Empire right now, so they won't pay a huge price to invade us? I can't be 100% sure, but it shouldn't be too far off. Sue E nodded. From my point of view, the Kingdom of Ruhr isn't rich in mineral resources, and the other products are also very ordinary. The only thing of real value is probably the southern estuary, and the Kanla Empire doesn't lack this. So to them, the Kingdom of Ruhr doesn't have enough value, so they have to pay a sufficient price. But the territory itself is very valuable. Seeing that Duke Boris still couldn't understand his thoughts, Sue E felt a little helpless. This was the biggest difference between him, who came from Earth, and the Signs natives. To the people of the Signs, land was the most important thing, because land could produce food. Naturally, the more land they had, the more food they could produce. This way, they could feed more people. So almost everyone in the Signs wanted to be able to control more land, and all countries wanted their territory to be bigger and bigger. This concept was inevitable when production technology was behind. It was like this on Earth, and Signs was no exception. But since the appearance of the new flyer, they developed a large number of agricultural magic machines, coupled with the cooperation with the elves to produce fertilizers and various crop catalysts. The food production of many countries on the Signs continent had significantly increased. Even the most important problem had been solved, but Duke Boris still held on to this traditional and old-fashioned concept. Sue E could only be speechless. After thinking for a while, Sue E gave up on arguing with Duke Boris about whether land was important to a country. Instead, he changed his tone and said, "How about this, Duke? Please go back and tell His Majesty the King. Our new flyer and the Kingdom of Ruhr are close partners. If the Kingdom of Ruhr is in trouble, New Flyer will not ignore it." Hearing this, Duke Boris's eyes suddenly lit up, and he was overjoyed. His purpose in coming to the New Flyer was to win the support of the New Flyer. But he did not expect Sue E to agree so quickly. Most importantly, the answer he gave was not vague at all, but unusually clear. His Majesty the King will be very happy to have Chairman Sue's promise. Duke Boris shook Sue Yi's hand hard. Chairman Sue, the Kingdom of Ruhr will always be New Flyer's best partner. Sue E maintained a smile on the surface, but he sighed softly in his heart. If it was not to maintain a strategic buffer between the New Flight Commerce main base and the Kanla Empire, he would not have given such a clear answer. Chapter 1042. Sue Yi's promise to support the Kingdom of Ruhr naturally wouldn't just stop at words. A week after meeting with Duke Boris, New Flyer and the Kingdom of Ruhr made a joint announcement. The Kingdom of Ruhr would sell 2 iron mines and 4 magic crystal mines in the northeast to New Flyer. This announcement didn't seem that special at first glance because with New Flyer's financial resources, it wasn't a problem for them to buy several mines. Moreover, New Flyer had been wildly collecting mineral resources in the Signs these past few years. According to incomplete statistics, New Flyer already controlled over 300 iron mines in the open and in the dark. They could even be considered the company with the most iron mines and other mineral resources in the Signs. But when the Frestac Chamber of Commerce released this statement, it revealed the true meaning behind this statement. New Flyer said in this announcement that in order to ensure that they could develop these mines, New Flyer would send a squad of New Flyer guards to these 6 mines. They would cooperate with the Kingdom of Ruhr's security and army to protect the safety of these mines. In order to provide protection for this squad of guards, New Flyer would build a base in the center of these 6 mines. If one just looked at this announcement, it wouldn't be considered anything special. But if one looked at the map carefully, they would find that the base that new flyer was about to build was less than 50 kilometers away from the border between the Kingdom of Ruhr and the Norton Duchy. Because the Norton Duchy had already merged with the Canla Empire, once new flyer's base was built, it would be less than 50 kilometers away from the border with the Canla Empire. Anyone who understood the situation on the continent could easily see that once new flyer's base was built, it would be equivalent to hammering a nail into the Canla Empire's heart. Although the border between the Canla Empire and the Kingdom of Ruhr wasn't short, the only place that could easily enter the Kingdom of Ruhr from the Canla Empire was the border to the east and north of the Kingdom of Ruhr. Now that new flyer had set up a base on the northern border and stationed a squad of new flyer guards, they had announced that anyone who entered the new flyer security zone without permission would be treated as an enemy. This was equivalent to setting up a forbidden zone here. If the Canla Empire tried to invade the Kingdom of Ruhr through here, they would inevitably step into the new flyer security zone. Anyone could see that new flyer did this as a warning to the Canla Empire. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. It's just a trivial company. They actually dare to be this arrogant. The Kandra Emperor looked at the report in his hand with a dark look on his face. There was an incomparably cold glow in his eyes as he gave a snort filled with anger. This Sue, does he really think that with his military magic machines, he can do whatever he wants? The highest commander of the Canla Empire's army, Marshal Campbell Sue Dearman, gave a sigh. It's a pity, Your Majesty, this is the truth. The might of the Frestack Chamber of Commerce's military magic machines was something that even Archmagi couldn't resist, so it was even more impossible for a normal army to resist. So from a purely military point of view, not only are Canla Empire, even in the signs, there's no one who can do anything to the new Flyers Guards. But isn't it just a company? The Kandra Emperor asked back. Could it be that we can't use our absolute advantage in numbers and our advantage in supplies to slowly wear them down? That's impossible. Marshal Sue Dearman shook his head. Your Majesty, the Empire's army has made detailed calculations, and the final conclusion is that the possibility of achieving this is close to zero. Why? First, I just said that in front of new Flyers' military magic machines that surpass normal people's imaginations, a normal army has no meaning at all. The only thing that can resist is the same level of military magic machines. No matter how many soldiers our empire has, as long as the new Flyers Guards have supplies, they can only send themselves to their deaths. You mean that the Empire's army can't harm the new Flyers Guards at all? Hearing this question, Marshal Sue Dearman was silent for a bit before giving a long sigh with a bleak look. Your Majesty, I'm very unwilling to admit it, but this is the truth. This time, the Kandra Emperor also fell silent. After a few minutes, he spoke again. You just said first. Is there any other reason? Yes. Marshal Sue Dearman nodded and continued. Your Majesty, you just said that you want to rely on our advantage in numbers and supplies to wear down the new Flyers' strength bit by bit to defeat them. My answer to you is that there is no meaning in numbers. So you want to say that we don't have any advantage in supplies? How is that possible? We are such a large empire, and the Frestack Chamber of Commerce is just a single company. Your Majesty, because New Flyer is just a company, they are more flexible in terms of supplies and have an advantage over us. Of course, the most important reason isn't this. Rather, New Flyer indeed has an incomparably large advantage in terms of supplies. It's even bigger than our military magic machines. Is that so? The Kandra Emperor deeply knit his brows with a bit of disbelief. Your Majesty, what do you think the so-called logistical supplies are? Marshal Sue Dearman asked. The Kandra Emperor was silent for a bit before shaking his head. I'm not a soldier, so I can't describe it clearly. But the so-called logistical supply, generally speaking, is nothing more than preparing enough supplies, and then giving these supplies to the soldiers who need them. Your Majesty is wise. What you said is the essence of supplies. Marshal Sue Dearman gave a slight nod of praise to the Kandra Emperor before continuing. But if you think about it carefully, you will find that in these two aspects, New Flyer has already surpassed all the other countries in the signs by more than 2 levels. It's that exaggerated? It's that exaggerated, Marshal Sudirman said with a serious look. New Flyer has various factories under their name, so they're very powerful in terms of production capacity. Just for military rations, New Flyer can produce enough rations for 500 soldiers for a week in just a single day with the flour processing factory they opened with the elves. As for the most important military magic machines, although I'm not clear on the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's production situation, I can imagine that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce will spend a lot of effort on this. The Kandra Emperor was silent for a bit before slowly nodding. Then in terms of transporting supplies, New Flyer has magic cars, magic boats, magic airships, and other magic machines. They can transport supplies quickly by land, sea, and air. Although our empire has some large transport magic cars, they are far from meeting the requirements. Most of our supplies still rely on the ancient horse carriages. Not to mention safety and transport capacity, just the speed alone is several times worse than New Flyer. The Kandra Emperor was silent for even longer this time. He saw the serious look on Marshal Sudirman's face and knit his brows as he fell in a deep thought, as his expression was also serious. Actually, as the Emperor of the Kanla Empire, of course he had some understanding of these important matters for the Kanla Empire. But before this, he always felt that although New Flyer had many advantages that other countries couldn't compare to, even the Kanla Empire couldn't compare to them, they were just a company in the end and weren't worth worrying about. So before this, his attitude towards the Frestec Chamber of Commerce was to cooperate with them and obtain benefits from this cooperation. He didn't treat them as equals at all. As for New Flyer, if they really overestimated themselves and became enemies with the Kanla Empire, even if they lost some benefits, they would still teach this company a lesson. But now that he heard Marshal Sudirman's clear analysis and decisive answer, he realized that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce really couldn't be treated as a normal company. This Chamber of Commerce actually had an absolute advantage in the military aspect. It was really hard to imagine. This means that Sudirman, your conclusion is that we can't fight New Flyer right now? The Kandra Emperor thought for a bit before asking this. Yes, Your Majesty. Marshal Sudirman nodded solemnly. Marshal Sudirman gave a serious nod. We should avoid direct conflict with New Flyer as much as possible. So we can't move against the Kingdom of Ruhr right now? The Kandra Emperor asked. Marshal Sudirman revealed a bitter smile. The New Flyer has already made their stance clear. Although I'm not willing, from the perspective of the Empire, it's better not to consider this matter. All right, I'll ask you one last question. The Kandra Emperor asked in a deep voice. We can't fight New Flyer because you think that the Empire's army isn't a match for the New Flyer's guards. Then I want to ask, if New Flyer suddenly invades the Empire, can our Empire's army stop them? Marshal Sudirman's bitter smile disappeared, and he said with a serious look, Your Majesty, even if we have to give up the lives of our soldiers, we definitely won't allow anyone to invade a single inch of our Empire's land. I'm not asking about your loyalty. Rather, I'm asking you, can you stop them? The Kandra Emperor raised his voice as he asked this. Marshal Sudirman was silent for a breath of time before he gave a slow and heavy nod. Please be assured, Your Majesty. Attacking and defending are two different matters. New Flyer doesn't have enough power to invade the Empire, and Su isn't that stupid. Very good. The Kandra Emperor gave a satisfied nod. The Kandra Emperor nodded with a satisfied look. Since we can't destroy New Flyer on the battlefield, we'll think of other methods. In the end, we have the giant Kanla Empire behind us, and Su only has a single company behind him. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.